Those two, so I'll go ahead and start our retreat. We're waiting to share. Member Young is getting something. I'm not sure if, Director Young was Dr. Joe Lightly and Mr. Guy, but they let you know if they're gonna be here.
Dick Guy was out of town.
He's out of town.
Yeah.
All right. Ready to start? We'll continue eating and we'll, turn it over. Staff, go ahead.
Yes, so today, Mr. Tackett, Bill Tackett is the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships with the Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group, or OMAG. He has a wealth of experience in city government, regularly performs orientations for newly elected officials and staff municipalities. Those of you who serve on Guthrie City Council may recall Mr. Tackett's previous presentations. And with that, I want to introduce and welcome Mr. Bill Tackett for his presentation today.
Thank you.
It's gonna go downhill from here, Wade. Need to do that applauding after we're done. May have some oh me's or oh my's when we get done. Guys, thanks for letting me be here. It's always a good day when you can be at the airport as far as I'm concerned. And so I'll pull this chair over here and thank you all for being willing to serve on that Port Authority board. Appreciate that very much. And let me tell you a little bit about OMAG and about me before we get started. And you guys keep eating, you won't bother me a minute if I do any of that for sure. OMAG stands for the Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group, and we are the insurance provider for about 500 cities and towns in the state of Oklahoma. We're not a private insurance company. State statute in Title 74 provides a really simple and powerful tool for local government, and it's the Interlocal Act. And basically it says whatever Guthrie can do by itself or whatever Edmond can do by itself, you find a partner and do it with them. It's just that simple. There's hundreds of interlocal agreements around the state. OMAG got started June 1st, 1977. Choctaw and the village got it started. And from those two towns, 40, however many years later, I'm a poli-sci major, can't do that. We have 500 cities and towns that belong to us. All of them are within the state of Oklahoma, and they're all municipalities. And so while we're not a private insurance company, we're a Title 74 Interlocal Cooperative Act agency. We do provide property, liability, workers' comp, surety bonds, and those kinds of insurance-like products. Technically, we're a public risk pool, and every state in the union except Hawaii has some kind of arrangement like OMAG. Hawaii doesn't function really like any of the other states. So OMAG, since we provide insurance coverage for our members, and since we don't have to pay dividends to back in New York City, we return value to our members as best we can through training and scholarships and grants and things that usually address some of our bigger loss exposures. But today I get to be at the airport, so that's a nice break from that. OMAG is made up of a 7-member board of trustees. They're either elected or appointed officials from across the state. And so that's what OMAG is, and that's our interest. We think the best run cities and towns have fewer claims, and the claims they have cost less money to resolve. So that's why we're interested in training folks that not only serve on city councils, but also serve on planning and zoning, the board of adjustment, or airport authority board, library board. Those are people that might at some point be interested in serving on city council and town board as well. And so you appreciate the manager letting me be here and do that. A little bit about me. The training that we do with at the council level, we do with an attorney out of Tulsa. He's a private practice attorney named David Weatherford. He's been a city attorney also since 1998. So some of the material that we'll have here today comes from him. I got out of school, and went to work for Oklahoma municipalities a long time ago, and worked in Oklahoma municipalities in various capacities, and also in Texas, Oklahoma, Texas. So I have a municipal background. I've been an employee at OMAG before, so prior to being an OMAG employee, I had served on the board, been chairman of the board. But that was in the distant past. So I've been a customer like Eddie is, or a member. I've been a member of their board and now an employee. So OMAG is headquartered in Edmond, just snugged up next to the college down there, or right off the boulevard, just west of Lake OMAG. You may not see that on the map. That's what we call it. So,
Lake OMAG.
Lake OMAG, that's what we call it. Y'all might have a different name for it, but no, I don't know. I read that plaque one time. They took a team of mules and drug out a little lake there between 33rd and Memorial. But it's not good. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure the city put a plaque up that says Lake OMAG there. So I've got a couple of handouts and go through some things with you, and hopefully we'll have a discussion and not a lecture. Let's see how we go. Might turn into a lecture. Those are lots of fun, aren't they? Did you wake up this morning saying I'd get a lecture today?
That's how Hayden sold this.
Did he say that?
Yeah, compared to
Come here to the lecture.
Yeah, I wasn't even coming until 12:30.
If you come here a lecture, you're doing just what you need to do. So I've got handouts here. Some of these I've kind of talked to staff about. Some of them will be a surprise to them. So if anything goes wrong this afternoon, it's 100% my fault, not theirs. So we'll just kind of start on the back. And like I say, a lot of what we talk about is taken from what we do with our city council training. And so what we tell our city council folks is that they serve as a board of directors. Now, look, we got some overachievers looking ahead. So we're on this page right here. And so while you guys don't fulfill the exact function that the city council does, you know, in Oklahoma, unlike schools and counties that only have one form of government, there's basically 5 different forms of this. And so, just to make it extra interesting, when people get elected or voluntold that they're going to serve, when they get elected or voluntold they're going to serve, they usually don't have any experience being on the board of directors. It used to be back in the day when we had local banks. If you were somebody in town, you might get a chance to serve on a local bank. If anybody else has got any governing body experience, it's usually volunteers. It's they're trustee for the church. That's the legal people that will get served and get sued. Boy Scouts, Chamber, United Way, all of those are just paper thin, go out and raise money. That's really what they do. A little bit of governance, not a whole lot. Mostly you're trying to raise funds, help staff up these deals. And there's nobody that will really write a business book for public sector folks. So we steal stuff from private sector providers. And so what we tell folks that serve, and again, this is, not exactly going to fit you guys, but it's a close cousin, is that they're a board of directors of a municipal corporation. I don't really think of it that way. They've never really told that, but that's really what they are legally. They're board of directors of a municipal corporation. And then they have other folks that they appoint to boards that help them carry out the functions of the city along with staff. Edmond and Guthrie happen to be a council manager form of government. And so in my opinion, OMAG doesn't have an opinion, but my opinion is that it's the best functioning form of government. Municipally, you can have a town form or alderman with a strong mayor. those apply to your city community. So, council manager, form of government, and they can appoint boards like you all to carry out functions, make recommendations, and do specific duties. If you have organic documents, it lays out your charge for your roles and your responsibilities. But generally, you guys have the same three duties, same three resources, and same three jobs in your report. You have the duties of care, obedience, and loyalty. You have the resources of time, money, and people. And you have the jobs of setting the strategic direction, adopting policy if needed to help staff bring you to that future state of monitoring results. So while I don't know anything new, everything I have told or stolen or both, we can modify and bolt on and adapt these kind of concepts to your roles. Duty of care, and all three of these duties are very simple. Duty of care says that when this part of your lap, it's this part of the chair, you're ready to go. It's that simple. So, Peyton, I think, prepares an agenda packet for you. I think he makes you get electronically. I prefer pen and paper, doesn't require software updates or reboots, batteries, but Peyton Jones, so he wants y'all to have electronic. And so when you get that thing, duty of care means that you're gonna read it. If you have any questions, you're gonna pick up the phone, you're gonna call and say, hey, what's the deal with, agenda item 6? Or did you do some due diligence back here on this quote on agenda item 7? Did you feel good about this bid? Or just whatever questions you might have before the meeting is called. It's simple as that. Sometimes when we're in our city council training, folks will say, well, now, you know, we like to ask our questions at the meeting. Well, it's not designed to not have questions at the meeting. It's designed so you are fully informed. So whether you're to discuss or vote or take an action, you're ready to go when you sit. Doesn't mean you'll vote the same way he will. Doesn't mean you'll ask the same questions he will. It just means you're ready to go. And if you're ready to go, you pick up the phone on anything you don't know about, or you type it. The obedience is kind of from particular to y'all. Local government is the most heavily regulated entity in the state. People down there in Oklahoma City think that we need lots and lots and lots and lots of rules. So they make them. And you guys, the FAA thinks we need lots and lots and lots and lots. So very heavily regulated. So obedience just simply says, we'll do whatever our organic document says that we'll do, and we'll do whatever the other folks make us do. That's all the duty of obedience. The duty of loyalty, I think, is something that sometimes is a little difficult for the city council folks. Sometimes you'll say, well, why did you run, or why did you get voluntold, or what is your duty? Why do you think you're serving? And some folks will say, well, I'm here for the people. I'm here to represent. And when I was in high school a long time ago, we kind of tired honestly, but sometimes get tired of people. I was like, they didn't get that a whole lot more about tired of people. People say, well, I'm here for the people. Well, you're here for the organization. The organization. So the duty of loyalty says that your hat says Edmond Guthrie Airport, and your duty is to do whatever is in the best interest of the airport. So when people get elected from Ward 5, they say, well, I'm here to represent the people of Ward 5. Well, you can advocate on their behalf. You've got to get enough other people to vote with you to get resources to them. But really, you're here for the organization's here for the people. So when you guys sit down, some of you are appointed by Edmond, some of you are appointed by Guthrie, and you're the representatives, but your loyalty is to the airport. And hopefully everybody's desired outcomes mesh and don't clash. But whatever might be better for one entity or the other entity, all of that should be subservient to what's best for this entity. That's how the duty of loyalty goes. So the way I like to describe it when I'm talking to city council folks is because cities and towns in Oklahoma, unlike every other state, runs off sales tax, not property tax. When they make a budget and they allocate resources, some of that will be road money. Well, I live over here and it used to be better subdivision. It used to be better. And I don't have a nice job with this college. I actually work for them. And Friday, I'm grumpy and I drive on a janky road and I call you up and say, fix my janky road. But you voted to spend all of our sales tax money to fix the road that goes to the groceries. But that's what sales tax is. It's not better for you to vote that way, but it's better for the organization because I'm gonna keep calling and wearing you out about fixing my road. You're gonna talk to the manager and say, hey, can we get some coal patch or some gravel in there? And can we please fix that road in FY 25-26? The road take it. If you did the right thing, you voted to fix the road with the groceries. So what? This probably won't come up during your tenure, but it might come up at some point where Guthrie has an interest or Edmond has an interest. Is that interest in the best interest of the I really don't think that's a thing that comes up very often on these kind of boards, but that's the big deal. Resources are time, money, and people. You guys have got a lot of resources coming. You're introduced with the council, the Congress lady here. Yeah, resources coming, very, very impressive. You know, as a board, when you're in your board meetings, most people feel like at city council level, and applies to y'all as well, that's your most scarce resource of money. But as you operate as a group, as a board, your most scarce resource is time. The only time you're functioning as an airport authority board is you have two things in place. Number one, the staff is properly posted an agenda that meets the open meeting law requirements. And number two, you have a forum. And you have those two things, now you're functioning. When you gavel us adjourned, we're promoted back to citizens. We don't have any individual powers or authorities. The exact same way for city council. When they're gaveled adjourned, they go back to being a citizen. They don't have individual powers. The power and authority resides in the group. And so your most precious resource is time. And so the things that are on your agenda are the things that really should be, okay, the things that only you all can do. If you have staff things on your agenda, then they shouldn't be. But you've hired people to do that. You should only have on your agenda the things that only you can do. Set a strategic direction for the organization is your primary job. Now you do that because you're representing two other organizations, the city of Guthrie, city of Edmond. But it's up to you all to help because they've delegated that business to you all. So they rely on you all to do those things and report back to them and make recommendations. And so we'll talk about direction for the organization. Probably don't need a lot of policies here. We got a lot of FAA rules. We've got the organic document for both organizations. But if you needed something, you could do that. And then really what we tell our governing body friends is the most important job is monitoring results. You set a direction, you make sure staff is able, empowered to take you to that future state. And now we're a 5-year-old in the backseat of the car. There you go. So really at a high level, the duties, the resources, and the jobs, I think apply across the board, whether we're talking about the library board or park and rec board or airport authority board. Code enforcement type of activities. Questions, comments, conversation, or complaints about anything so far? If you wish, your election. Disagreement about it. No. You guys need to get up and get seconds. Looks pretty good. I really do that. Want it to be pretty informal. Let me see about, let me look at your handle here and see what we got. I think we just turn this page over. You know, if you just turn this page over, you see something called the stability test, and that's what we do as a means of seeing where we are, and the stability test was developed by David Weatherford. It covers the 10 key areas of municipal operations. Some of it might be applicable to what you all are doing or want to do. And what we do is we encourage city councils to take the stability test every year, take it annually. And so far, I don't know, couple, 1,500 or better people have taken the test. Over 200 cities and towns have taken the test. Very rarely do we get any late woven on it, the Chamber of Commerce, where everything. If we get those, we have a file for them. And very rarely do we get all zeros. We think people are pretty honest. Sometimes people are cranky and they put down some lower scores and they might merit. And sometimes people are running for the Chamber of Commerce and they'll bill. But generally they answer them pretty honestly, I think. And these 10 questions cover the 10 key areas of municipal operation. Some of them will be applicable to you all. And they should be the ones that you feel like are applicable to you all, that would help you serve Edmond and Guthrie at the airport. And they should be things that you want to monitor the results on. Get reporting on. And I think it's up to you as a board to tell staff the frequency, the format, and the contents of the reports you would like. That will help you either decide the progress we're making or decide the direction we need to go. And so, if you tell staff, generally by this time you talk to the city council about ordinances versus resolutions, but if you guys can have resolutions as well. If you'll resolve things, then what that means is you've spoken with one voice. Instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, instead of having 7 voices trying to correct staff, we have one voice that corrects staff. And you can do that by resolution. And so these 10 areas of municipal operations can be the things that maybe you want to monitor. And if you do, then you need to tell staff the frequency, the format, and the content of the things that you want to know as you go through the year, through the 3 to 5 year cycle. Finance, obviously, it's number one because my first boss told me if the money ain't right, ain't nothing right. So we put the money up there pretty close. Lots of cities and towns run pretty close to the bone, or they're in the red. You'd be surprised. I know coming from Edmond, Edmond's not that way, and not that way, but a lot of cities. So the airport generates money, and we not only do you generate money on the field, but you also have grants and funding from both organizations. And so the finances are there. We tell local government people that people expect banks and businesses to be financially solid. They expect local government to be financially solid. We encourage to have a reserve. Now, we do that for the same reason you guys have a savings account at the house. Something good might go on sale and you want it. Something bad might happen and you gotta fix it. Same thing. Nobody's gonna get in their car today and say, boy, that Bill was a smart guy. He told me stuff like that. Nobody's gonna say that. But you might hear it a different way and it might strike you. Next thing is the governing body. One of the biggest strengths that we can have is continuity in governing bodies. One of the biggest challenges we have in Oklahoma is we have a really strong lack of continuity in governing bodies. Either people, very rarely will people be defeated in the fight. They just won't keep serving. And oftentimes, people don't like to hear this. I think it's not the American way, but I have an opinion that folks on the governing body ought to be having a bench, somebody that they know that could be a good person to serve on. You guys have terms that you serve and you can be reappointed, but Part of your duty would also be, hey, I know somebody would be good to take my spot when I'm ready to get off. Because we need continuity in service. You know, when the Tampa Bay folks needed a quarterback, they didn't post an ad, they went to New England and got it. You guys need to be thinking about, okay, who would be good on the board if somebody had a scratch off or didn't want to do it instead? Who would be somebody so that you can have a continuity of service? Your meetings, rely on your agendas. Your agendas are your framework for a good business meeting. There should not be anything on that agenda that you guys hired somebody to do. The only thing that should be on your agendas are things that only you can do. And I think you guys meet monthly. There's all kinds of meeting schedules. At OMAG, we don't meet monthly, for example. We take the summer off. Some people meet every other month, if we do quarterly. It's up to you what works for you guys and fits the need. But there shouldn't be a lot of administrative things on your agenda. I mean, your agendas need to come out in an agenda package, and they do a good job with that. Got 2 or 3 employees here, and I think we've got some seasonal and some part-time folks. Public image. Public image across the board, regardless of the form of government in Oklahoma, is always the lowest rated category. And I think there's 2 reasons for that. A lot of towns could stand 10 gallons of Roundup and 5 gallons of paint. You know, I like Edmond's approach to code enforcement. They call code enforcement the community image department. I like that. And I go around the state and tell people, would your other community image roll up on your code enforcement? I mean, they're going to do the same thing, but if it says community image on the side of the truck, it looks like maybe there's some velvet around it, camera, you know. Now, Pontiac's still going to have to get out of the front yard and off the blocks, but you know, I think it's a different approach. And so some towns just need to clean their act up. Some towns can't do code enforcement because their stuff looks terrible. That's not the case in Guthrie. Another reason is we have social media out there. So you got a lot of keyboard warriors. We like to hide behind the memes. I'm told I'm not on the face page or anything else. That shit that passed me by, but I think the public image gets hit because of social media interaction. I think people obviously look for the negative things, for example, but cities and towns used to have 1 front door, and now they have 2. Your website is your front door. Your airport's your front door. Your airport's your front door to your business community, and it is your front door to your transit activity. And so you guys are getting in there. Terminal. I've been to a lot of airports, and airports are kind of treated like golf courses. They're kind of, okay, we got one when I got here, I guess we'll keep it, but I don't fly, and I don't trust those little planes, and I'm just a money pit, and I don't go out there, and that's kind of the vibe you get to a lot of places that have the left. So it takes a dedicated group of people who care about flying, care about the airport, understand that the airport is the front door of the community. Say this needs to be our best first impression of it. Because it is. People who arrive here sometimes are going to make a big difference in you. And you don't know when you attract the transient traffic who's in the plane. And I know you guys know this, but it's good for you guys to be equipped to be the advocate about that. Your website really is the front door of the city anymore to the general population. Airport is front door to business community professionals. It needs to reflect that. Crisis management talks about, really, we talk about in crisis management, the timing of decisions. So, for example, in Sand Springs, one of the places David Weatherford is the city attorney. They have delegated a bunch of authority to the city manager. By delegating that authority, they have activated the timing of the decision. They don't wait till something bad happens to call a meeting to make a decision. So, for example, Sand Springs sits below Keystone Lake and Boston. And the former town administrator of Manfred used to say that only God can make it rain and only the Lord can make it flood. So they know for sure that their sewer plant that sits on the river below Keystone Lake is going to go underwater about every 4 years. So they decided way back here, so they've already made a policy decision. The policy decision is when the crew water comes in, we clean it up before we put it in the river. That decision got made long time. Then they made a decision we're going to do it with mechanical plants. Not with lagoons. That decision's already made. So now they made a decision that when the plant goes underwater and the water's being rewound and the pumps need replaced, the city manager has that authority to do that because they want the sewer plant to function. And then he or she makes a report to the city council about what they did and how much they spent. Didn't take any authority away from anybody because staff never has authority that's not been delegated. But what it does is it decides the timing of decisions. So the more decisions that get made in advance of a crisis, the better off the organizations have. Again, decisions in the earth shaking, but it maybe helps to hear it a different way. Economic development, your airport is a big driver in economic development. A lot of times the funds that are generated on the field don't seem like they're supporting operations or sufficient. That's not really what it's about. It's about what kind of businesses and professionals you can attract here. Planning and goal setting is something that you guys are charged with doing. And so you should have a continuous plan that rolls out into the future over the horizon. There's a lot of times that one of the more difficult things we have to do with city council folks is people like to do what they're familiar knowledge. So when I tell people, hey, your job is to, when I say, hey, your job is to take a blank piece of paper and write the future on it, nobody has any experience doing that. They're not comfortable with it. I wouldn't be, but that's their job. And by 2034, Edmond will go here and accomplish this. That'll tell us. So we have a direction. Zig Ziglar used to say when he was alive, if you aim at nothing, you get it every time. You have to have a direction to go because one or two things are going to happen. 2034 is coming. We're either going to make circles like the children of Israel did in the desert. 2034 is going to go past us, or we're going to go somewhere on purpose. Now, we may not get all the way there, but we're going somewhere. We're aiming for something. Planning and goal setting is an important function of this board. A lot of it's in the form of recommendations. It's still what the parent organizations, if you will, are looking for you guys to do. Administration, you guys are very fortunate here. You have professional administration, you have airport manager, city manager. And so, those people, the highest and best use of those people are administrative things and to develop resources. Because airports are always starved of resources. The grants and that kind of funding is very important. And then communication, you guys are an advisory board to some extent, so you need to be communicating back to the motherships about what your status is, what your directions are, what your goals are, and you need to do that. Should be on a schedule. Should be on your agenda. If it's not on your agenda, you can't talk about it or act on it. Okay. So not only does the future need to be on your agenda, but the communication and reporting back and maybe do it biannually, maybe do it annually. Whatever schedule you've got set up with, maybe do it as things become known or. So that's the thing here is municipal operations that that we look at, and I think a lot of it could be helpful to you all as well, even though you guys serve on as an advisory group to a large extent. I'm going to talk about strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, and just going to do that electronically.
We want them to complete the stability test correctly during so that's score. Okay, great.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, if that up there.
That's what else a point of order. I think we switched over, I'm not sure we're still recording.
We should still be recording, I think, since we had someone join. There he goes. We're still recording.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I noticed. No. Yes, you're right. Make sure we're still on the way.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Doing great.
It's good. Thanks, guys. Stability test.
So we're gonna take this and we want to do it now or
You just completed it before we leave.
Okay.
That's great.
So the sidebar is filling up over here. Who do we have over?
Billy Wheeler, city attorney for Guthrie. Scott Review, city manager.
Thought I'd seen you once a long time ago. Well,
Thanks.
talked to Larry about a month ago, Don Missouri. City managers normally fail every time. If you want to, yeah, you can fill that out, and then, see, the value of the stability test is to take it annually. And if you'll do that, then you will have trends over time. What we're really interested in is trends over time and not snapshots. And hopefully, if we'll do it every year, and staff will present it every year, then when it's your turn to be off the seat, part of the orientation could be that you trend over time. These are our strengths, these are our weaknesses, these are things that maintain. And you can see the things that you want to maintain as strong and strengthen that. We're going to do the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and I thought, okay, what would be one way to do this? And I thought one way to do this would be to talk about, to get you to think about as you talk. If you look at the back of your hymnal here, and we cycle things higgledy-piggledy to try to keep your attention. You'll see that talks about airport utility functions and features. I think that's very broad categories of how we would look at our strengths or weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You guys have a different way of going about it. We'll do it a different way, but that's what I think. The utility of the airport, what are its functions and its features. And so there's two different ways I think to look at it. We don't have to look at it this way, but what I looked at was, okay, you can turn back to the front page here, and when you turn over, you'll see I printed out information about some area airports. So, when you look at the SWOT analysis, you can look internally, what's internally, what are our strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. But I think an additional way to do that is to say, okay, what's the standard against which we want to compete or measure or evaluate? What are the standards against, it's that zigzag thing. If you ain't nothing, you hit it every time. So what is our standard? If you're gonna be VFR, you gotta be software from the clouds and this and that and all that. If you're IFR, it's gonna be a different standard, right? What standard are we looking to either measure against or compete against or evaluate against? So I looked up some area airports. And Shawnee had a tornado hit them a year ago and did them some damage. The hangars got messed up, their terminal got messed up. They've taken that down. They're gonna get a new one now. Shawnee has crosswind runway. They had rental cars on place, and the private rental car was on site. Of course, ODUs are across the street, right? I don't know who you guys think your competition is. I'm guessing you might think your competition is local, maybe Wiley, maybe Sundance, I don't know. But, I looked at the airports that are around here. And so one of the things that I think an airport, a general aviation airport wants to do is you want to be known for transient traffic and you want to try to capture transient traffic. So there's about 3 or 4 different ways to do that. But anyway, Shawnee is one of the ones I thought that, okay, with Guthrie being in competition with. Now, you might not think of being in competition with other airports, but I think you are, at least to attract businesses, to attract the kind of fixed base operations and people that will keep their business jets and that kind of thing here. Y'all don't have a crosswind run that I'm aware of.
No.
We had a grass one, right, for a number of years. We did have an extension with the second one, the grass one.
And so crosswind's probably not going to be used by business jet, but it might be something to put on a long range planning thing. Just maybe it wouldn't be. I don't know, but you guys are looking at the future down the road, not in 12 months only, but you're looking at 10 years, right? And you think, okay, what are the things that increase in utility there? That a crosswind runway may never be a thing. So I don't know, but some of the airports around that might be competing airports have crosswind. So Shawnee has 5,997 foot length airport runway. But, and I took this out of Air Nav and I don't, but your 3.5 airport has 404 foot display threshold. So really, if you're landing from that direction, your runway is 5,500, not 59, for example. So these are the kind of things that seem maybe administrative in nature or technical in nature, but how do you look when you're looking when a pilot is looking to either call this place home or they're routinely going to transit your airspace? What do they look for? What's a strength? What's a weakness? What's an opportunity? What's a threat? So Shawnee is not that far from Oklahoma City, about 25 miles. And they're going to get a new terminal, just like you guys get a new terminal. Some of this information is not new, but they had back in 18, they had 37 aircraft base, and they averaged 25 operations a day. So that's Shawnee. They also have folks on field that can fix your airplane, do the handles and those kind of things. El Reno has a couple of runways. One of them is thawed. Their big north-south runway is 5,600 feet long. And they can support up to 30,000 pounds single wheel. And they, back in 2021, they had 63 aircraft based on it. And they had 96 operations today. Norman has crosswind. They're right at 5,200 feet long on their north-south. They can go up to 100,000 double tandem. Their 0321 runway is 4,700 feet long. They've got a lot of services on site, on the field. And they also, will, charge you money if you want to fly in to go to a ball game. So. So we've been to Shawnee and El Reno, we've been to Norman. Of course, next is Sundance, on Piedmont, private airport, open to the public. 55,000 feet long. They've got all kinds of services there to get your airplane evaluated and repaired. Got 210 aircraft based there, and this is old information. Back in 2019, they had 124 operations. I could have went on. I didn't include down there at the bottom. I didn't include those airports for your consideration. So if you're coming from the north, I didn't include Ponca. Coming from the northeast, I didn't include Bartlesville. Coming from the northwest, I didn't include Woodward. Coming from the west, I didn't include Weatherford. If you're coming from the southeast, I did not include Durham. But if you're looking at the utility of your airport, I think there is some value or some utility in looking at, okay, who might be the competition? How do you capture more fans of activity? Get people on the field. I mean, there's the old joke. I don't know. It's with inflation, it's probably way higher than this. It used to be the $100 hamburger. It's not. I'm sure it's not anywhere near $100 now. It's at $100 back in the '80s. You know, Ponca's got a Mexican restaurant up there.
Even Woodland has a restaurant.
So
Ardmore has a restaurant.
you know, there's a place out in Kansas where you land and drive the plane up to the hotel and so there's these kind of things that if a person's looking to cross-country transit to airspace, what's your fuel costs, what services are available, what can I get a rental car or courtesy car available to an inheritance or a restaurant there, the kind of things that make the airport one that somebody might want to stop, buy some fuel from, buy some food, maybe bring their airplane back to the services when it's time for an evaluation, either an upgrade, airplanes, avionics, or time for an ambulance. So, as we look at our strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats, I thought it might be good to have who's your competition in your mind, and is that part of the calculus that you have when you think about strengths and weaknesses? So, did you guys QR code yourselves yet?
Yeah, so we'll get out your mobile phones and we'll scan this QR code. If you need help, I can come around and help you. I'll give you all just a few seconds to scan it. And then I'll switch to the website and I'll put your responses anonymously up here on the screen. I'll give you a minute and then I'll come around if you need additional time. Yes, or it is included on here link. Yes.
It'll read about that. Oh, okay. Well, that's the one. Look at it now. It says strength. No, either. Yeah, they didn't rechange. They read about it. Okay.
Everybody in? No.
Nothing.
Okay.
this a bad zone for AT&T? Can you go back?
Shouldn't be. Yes, I can go back.
Let's,
There you go.
submitted my answer before.
Yeah, mine too.
Um,
Jim over to the second page. Making it there.
yeah, I needed to go back. First page.
It should go wherever I have the PowerPoint slides set, is my understanding.
Should be on the strengths.
Oh.
When you first uploaded it, it said capital for,
Right.
but it should be strengths.
So let me, does everybody have it? You still have it all? Let me go to one page. This is my drive pad number. I should have just done pen and paper. I tried to get all fancy on this.
Okay, what about the one, there was another phrase that came up first.
That'll pop up whenever I change the slide. It'll change. Yeah. Okay.
So we just make up a word?
Yep, you can just say any string. I try to keep it, pretty short. I don't wanna run on a sentence or anything, but. Should record your responses. I don't know if you wanted to touch on anything specific about, or if I were going to move the weaknesses.
No, I think I got about it.
This only does one right now,
What was that?
just one word.
We can include more.
Or if I just chose one and sent it,
Yeah, should work.
and then it's done.
Right.
Yes, but you should be able to put multiple responses, is my understanding.
Yes.
Yes.
The opportunity was there, I chose one.
Okay, there you go.
The way it works is it should word cloud the warrant response. And if you only put one, that limits the number of responses, so. Word cloud. The end should be less.
Is that live, is those our responses?
Is that what?
Is that live?
It's live, yeah. It should change it as they change. Sorry.
I'm not, so go for it.
Not, but I like that, it's cool, cool.
So we can help staff capture some of your thoughts here. Location clearly is the winner. What about the location makes you guys think that that is your most prominent strength?
I think I look at us as being similar to, you know, on a smaller scale to McKinney. So McKinney is like an enormously popular airport just based on its location outside of Bravo. You can get in and out of McKinney without going to Bravo. You can get in and out of Guthrie without going to Charlie. So we are prime location for a lot of people that want to avoid, you know, that kind of control and congestion. You know, obviously it's at a smaller scale because, you know, the open city area is just not as congested. But if you look at Fourth Light, you have ADSB and there's a lot of traffic. You see a lot more traffic. It's out there. So I think that our location is very unique. Edmond doesn't have the airport in its own, obviously, so we have almost now a community that needs that kind of thing that is going to use. Probably 3/4 of our tenants on the airport are. Okay.
I'm equidistant from Guthrie and Sundance, and I used to fly to Sundance. Sundance has a lot more traffic. I consider Sundance really close to Guthrie in a number of ways, but certainly traffic is a lot denser down there. And I think we have more reliable pace here in Guthrie, and we have better services and certainly more affordable costs right now.
The location. I would challenge your thinking about why people would stop there.
Okay.
Why wouldn't they go to Shawnee instead of coming to Guthrie? Well, if I'm coming to Edmond to do business, or the north side of Oklahoma City area to do business, I don't want to have anything to do with Shawnee. I want to be someplace that gets me close to my destination. And so I don't see Shawnee as competition in that regard. Ponca City is not competition for the same reason. It's just too dang far. You know, if you're a pilot and the boss says, I want to get to this meeting on the north side of Oklahoma City, he doesn't want you to take him to Shawnee. He doesn't want to take you to West Time.
But I do think Shawnee is a competition for businesses that you want to attract. If you look at the airport as being an industrial park kind of location, I think Shawnee, you know, it's on I-40, we're on I-35. You know, you are looking at business. I agree with you in terms of transient aircraft. Shawnee is not a competitor. If you are going into Midwest City, people are going to go to Shawnee.
Yeah, so my point is not to stifle conversation. I don't want to do that, please. Nobody's going to land in Shawnee to drive that.
Right now.
But if someone needs fuel, or needs repair, and needs a taco, and they stop at Ponca and they don't stop at Guthrie. That's my point. Now, if the boss says, you know, get me the UCO, we're not landing in North, obviously. I'm talking about people that are flying over you and say, where's a good place to get something to eat, or where's a good place to get fuel, or where's a good place to get avionics with that.
Those are certainly good opportunities.
Attracting opportunities. So the more people that land here for various reasons. So I'm not trying to stop the conversation in the least of it at all. You know, Shawnee, I think, is a little similar because you've got OU there, you stay at the Catholic College, that's pretty small, not something west. You're on I-40, I-35, no CD, stuff like that. So location, you know, I was flying with a guy up to Boulder one time. We were, and he picked, I thought a funny altitude. He said it was MGI. I've never heard of that before. So what is that? And he said minimal government interference. So a lot of people don't want to be excited to be here to see. So that's new bank, Shawnee or Guthrie. Convenient new terminal, that's a big deal. I'm surprised that's not a little bigger. Actually, that's a big strength that you guys have got. Number of based aircrafts, very competitive with the numbers that I got, even though they were dated from the area airports. Community support, who wants to speak about that? That's one of our strengths here. Someone is listed or more than one.
Well, every time, in the fall, usually in September, we have a kind of open house and, the community is real good to come out and, see what's going on, support. Same thing at our Christmas Santa fly-in. Oh, yeah. People come out and bring the kids to see Santa Claus for Christmas.
I saw those pictures on the website, but that's unusual, but you think the like that. You have to put some weight on there.
I know, when I flew Santa in this year, and we, thinner Santa than we had last year.
Yeah. So we're looking a little thin this year. The FOB.
Supposed to be able to
All right.
So fuel on board.
Fuel on board.
But I guess that's really doesn't count because the other airports, in our situation, we're in dire need of them because, as I'm told, a lot of these jets will not fuel with the unbranded fuel, and our tanks are so branded.
Awesome.
So, we made a significant change, but I guess I really don't realize that that's necessarily the source of competition.
Certainly is if we want to attract more jets in the airport.
I imagine those other airports are already, they're probably in the dinosaur category, we were, I think.
True.
You also have, you have even single engine, pilots that will look at whether or not you have branded fuel. And the age, but
It helped. I actually made us their competition. So.
Right.
So when you were speaking about this whole initial idea, in my mind, what you said was, and I'm not a pilot, but in my mind, it's getting those people who are going to fly to Dallas that need fuel and make the decision whether they want to stop at Shawnee or Ponce City, because it's something to eat, something to fuel, whatever, it's kind of like a pit stop anyway, no matter you look at it. When you drive and fly.
Maybe your bladder gave out, one of them.
Yeah.
Develop potential, talk to the group about development potential. So staff can capture these thoughts more completely. We've got some land south that we're looking at acquiring. I think we're pretty full on our hangar space, and so we've got some taxiway extension and improvements, and maybe some more hangar space. I don't know exactly, but what were you all thinking when you put about development? Was it the development down south, or was it different?
Well, several things. We've got the west development area. We've already have some taxiways that have been poured. We need to build a retaining pond for the runoff before it be developed. That's one thing. Over on the east side, if we want to get some kind of senior moment development over there, you've got access to I-35 that can be developed. If you want to do that. My big push since I've been on the board is we need to extend the runway 2,000 feet to get the bigger area that everybody's going to attract the bigger businesses. We can have a corridor along I-35, developed for businesses, for high-tech stuff. Edmond, and I'm speaking from an Edmond point of view. Edmond, we're approaching 100,000 people. Arguably the best public school system in the state. You may argue that, but I think we are. We've got a great university. It's a great place to live. It's for somebody that wants to get away from the east and west coast or the traffic of Dallas. this would be a great place to put your business, but we need to extend the runway to get the bigger jets because that's what people are going to.
What, I've been out of it a long time, so I don't know. It sounds like you know better. What level of jet are we talking about?
We're talking about the big, Gulf Streams in because you're gonna need, on a hot day, you need 6,300 feet just to take off. We got some hot days. Same thing for the Challengers. It's, you know, the runway we've got was 3,500 feet, around 2,000. We extended it 1,500 feet to make it 5 to get jets in at that time. But we're limited to small and medium jets. If we want to see this as an economic development, attraction for economic development, we need to extend the runway. And it's going to be expensive to do that because we're going to bring in a bunch of the bill. We're going to have to probably widen the runway from 75 to 100 feet to really make it a destination for people who want to come in and to bring the things. We've got a great country club where we have golf tournaments. Those guys are flying the bigger Gulf Streams. And so if you want to, if Oak Tree wants to get more tournaments, that would be another draw. We have entertainment at the what's the
Lazy.
no, not the Lazy E, but the Armstrong. We have the
Armstrong.
Armstrong Auditorium, bring in all sorts of entertainment. Once again, the entertainers are flying around the big jets. You know, that would bring more entertainers in, you know, higher quality. So they can get them still landing at one and post with a 75-minute foot and have the drive 35. That's what I'm.
Okay, so right now, staff, that wouldn't be a strength. We would put that under opportunity for weakness. Yeah.
I might add to the development potential. I was talking to somebody the other day. Over the years, we've watched the gap between the city of Norman and the city of Moore close. It used to be wide open spaces down through there, and it's not anymore.
Right.
If you take and you look at North Texas, also the northern Dallas area, how that continues to expand. I think what we'll see also is the Edmond Guthrie area is going to continue to close. So it's a development potential. And in a lot of respects, we have a blank slate here. Availability. What do you want to develop? Why do you want to be in the Oklahoma City metropolitan? You've got space right here. We've got land right here. We've got the opportunities right here where you can develop that. And I think that gap will continue to close. So I think that's development potential.
If you take any of the roads that are not on I-35, you know, when I was a student in high school, there was a big gap on Broadway between Edmond and Guthrie than there is on before. There's housing development, housing development. If you go down Cedar Road, it was largely rural. We now have a huge amount of development in South County that is spilled over and is pushing into Guthrie. And so, yeah, I mean, it is the development growth is now to the north. So you're right. It is like, and again, when I was in high school and we would go to Dallas, you know, to go Christmas shopping, it seemed like once you hit the Red River, it was forever until you got into Denton. Now it's a continual development from the Red River and Gainesville to Dallas. It's not as one large. That is now part of their metropolitan. Whereas it wasn't when I was a child. It's definitely, and Edmond's the same way. Edmond Guthrie are definitely seeing a lot of growth in South County.
That's true. And when I'm done here, I'm going to go meet with the mayor of Cashion, and there's lots of houses being built on 74. So you're right. That's good.
Oh yeah, you go down Portland, yeah, there's now a lot of development. Deer Creek is not that far away.
Yeah, it's true. Friendly.
That one was mine. I think compared to some, maybe not as friendly as others.
Committed management, that is a big plus.
I feel like both cities have have leadership that are committed to the airport. And I think that's a huge thing for.
I agree. I agree. Okay, strengths and weaknesses, so are we Q coding again?
Yes.
Okay.
So weaknesses should automatically pop up. There should have been a QR code showing. You go back to your web browser, should automatically.
There it is. All right, we still talking. Well, we'll leave money alone for a minute. Lack of an app.
Approaches probably. I didn't write it, but I'm assuming that's what they meant, was lack of approaches. Lack of app. No,
This says AP. I didn't know if that was an app for your phone or your tablet.
Nobody wants to own that one.
All right, good. I'll pick the right one. Appearances.
Yeah. I said that.
Let's
Appearances,
let's hear some more about that.
well, hanging over there across with junk in front of it. And some of the hangers are old. It needs an upgrade in appearance, and that goes back to financial. But I think we could use some new lips and more areas.
Okay.
That's all comes with the money.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to have money problems because there's problems money can't fix.
Don't get me wrong. In my lifetime, living in Guthrie, the airport's come a long ways.
Well, we got several different ways to save money. We got underfunded. We've got high priority, limited development area, financial. So let's talk about money. It's like several people put money as several different formats. What about the money is causing us a weakness here? I mean, we're getting some federal largesse here. We've got two good sponsors with Guthrie-Edmond. What are we concerned about with money?
Well, here a couple of years ago, we had a couple of deer strikes.
Okay.
You know, and we were all hot and ready to put a fence around to keep the deer out of at least still down coming across the property. And because of money, we still don't have a fence.
Well, so
We were told that, you know, 6 planes, 6 jets wanted to come here, but they weren't gonna come as long as we had deer problems. And that's been a year and a half talking about this. And that's what I'm saying, hey, it's just not, you know, in the scheme of things, it's not that high of a priority when you've got streets and sewer systems and things like that.
Lots of competition.
Lots of competition for money. Now, yeah, more people need that stuff than, you know, I mean, some of the pilots out here need a fence.
So there's no fence around the airport.
There is
It's
large
large.
fencing.
Cause I'm telling you, after 9/11, I thought we fenced every airport.
Now, there's still a lot, but
No FAA requirement for general aviation.
Okay.
if you go to, Granbury, for example, there's no fencing around, and they have a huge red line, there's no fence. If you go to Alba, I don't think there's a fence, Alba.
No. There's Bartlesville, so I don't know about. Pocket, I think Pocket got fence. Okay, fence. But you're right, sewer streets, police unions, a lot of competition for money up there. Commercial space. Help us understand more about commercial space.
I think I would move on to the commercial space. It's because we have a limited amount of space left for development of commercial hangars. Obviously, you know, I'm interested in seeing more commercial development come to the airport. And we're limited on the amount of space that we currently have available for development. Now, part of that will be solved when we do some expansion to the south. So, you know, we have more demand than we have space available. Right?
That was a weakness I identified too, just because of our location, workable box, and we don't have the ability to grow our footprint very much. And I think that is a pretty major weakness.
Facilities is pretty big on there, along with hangar space. Is facilities different than terminal or hangar space?
I think it also includes, you know, we have a limited number of the annex on the field. So when you talk about facilities, it's not just physical facilities, but the service facilities. So we have currently, I think we have only one A&P shop. We don't have an IA shop. We have the potential to get an instrument avionics shop here, but we that.
That goes back to traffic and the air.
It also goes back to, there's just a shortage of A&P and IA. Annex, but I mean, you know.
Instrument shop is a really great one because the cost of avionics is so expensive. You know, a lot of sales tax revenue potential with the avionics shop.
So we do have avionics shop here.
No, we don't.
We would need to recruit.
I think there are plans that go does make contact with the young child.
That was one of my responses, but I was coming from NAV-8s. If you want to be an airport that can capture any traffic anytime, then you have to do that when you've got a 300-foot ceiling and half-mile visibility. And I don't think, right now, I don't know for sure, but tell me, are we not just strictly a purely VFR airport? If you get below 1,003, do we have, what are our minimums? So
1 mile and 250.
1 mile and 250?
1 mile is
So that's not as bad as I thought. Is that a GPS? LPV? But being able to capture that traffic whenever the weather's bad, I think is important. And especially if you want to make it, you want to get to a place where it's a destination airport and my airplane lives here,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Right.
Those opportunities are gonna have to exist. And then it comes to A&D mechanics, avionics, repair, all of that sort of thing as well.
and more hangar space.
And more hangar space. Big box hangars like you said.
Toby, is the FAA, putting any ILSs in anymore?
not, we've tried for years at Baldwinsville, and they're, not that I'm saying I personally agree with it, their position is, we've got LPV that can get ILS-like performance, it's not worth the cost of ground-based.
That's what I
Yeah,
heard.
it's- It would be $20 million to install one now. Enid's the last one we did, and it was quite expensive. And we don't have a terrain with the space for it. You gotta have a pretty wide swath of land, for the glide slope signal, because the glide slope signal actually hits the ground and bounces back up. Okay, and so I don't think we need to eliminate our glide slope critical.
So, I like that, phrase, that's about airplane. movement. So, you know, we started about airport utility functions and features, and so that's really the basis of that. We talked about development area, money, facilities. Before we move on, pavement strength. Let's get back to, if we were extended, we don't have the pavement strength to land.
If you're gonna be longer, you're gonna have to be stronger, you have to be wider.
So it's not
To
just
attract those
lengthening,
bigger jets.
maybe quite minimum.
Well, especially on the south end here. I don't know how you get there. I'm sorry, guys, I'm new. But I don't, I've looked at this airport since the late eighties. And that canyon down on the south end is gonna be a difficult thing to overcome. There's a tall, tough road to hoe just getting industrial back to lengthen the airport line north. But to move south,
All right, any other weaknesses that I didn't have the group talk about? You guys put something there we need to touch on, so staff can more completely capture your thoughts before we move on. Opportunities would be your next one. Yield jets from Wiley.
I just thought it would be on.
Wiley would appreciate that. He was a bad boy. He, I went into an airport after him, but I guess we would call him colorful, wouldn't we?
Two airports out there, two Bell aviators.
No, Will was kind of a habit. Oh, you're sorry. He's in the rowdy fellow.
It's smaller. It's prison time.
Yeah. He was a pioneer.
You did prison
time?
Yeah, well, I think he stole a car or something. And did some hard time.
He looked back when people were free, you know. Wasn't no confined animal feeding operation back then. It's all free running. Yeah. Wiley Post. He set several records above the Bardville Airport. Well, yep. What got me created pressure suit for altitude high altitude.
The city's Smithsonian.
So, other than he killed Will Rogers, we probably. Let's see, opportunities. Clean slate. Tell me about clean slate. Well, wait a minute.
I think it's clean airspace.
We've lost our. Some of our people.
Oh, no, it does say clean slate.
Clarify, so, right, so. That says,
It does say clean slate, I saw it was on the vertical there.
clean slate.
That was me.
All right.
I see a lot of blank space that could be developed into something. Could be, another competing FBO if we ever get to that place. Could be airframe and power plant. Could be avionics. Could be a lot of things. But, the opportunities to purchase more land that's in close proximity that could be part of the airport property. It's just land. So what do you want to put on it? What kind of business you want to put on it? I don't know. Zivco? Are they still in business? You know, at one time they were the only ones producing a truly world-class aerobatic aircraft. And that was right here together. And a lot of people in the United States didn't know that. So, you know, things like that, you don't know who's out there and might want to be. They might want to be close to the Oklahoma City area because they're associated with both. And they need an avionics or aviation related site. So things like that, to me, it's kind of a, maybe not clean slate, but blank. A lot of opportunities, possibilities.
Opportunity room. Yeah. Yeah. Hangar demand, and talked to staff here and unlike some airports, I don't think we got head cars and couches and feet hangers, so good to have that feet hanger demand. Partnership is the fact that Guthrie-Edmond are partnered in this thing. Makes it real strong. Makes it real strong because Ponca, Boswell, Johnny, they don't have partners.
No, and when you look at, trying to attract federal, dollars and things like that, one of the things that Congresswoman Bias mentioned to us is that she likes the fact that this project represents making two constituencies happy, not just one. So.
How do you guys, and I don't know enough time, but anybody else spot it all, but how do you guys tell the airport story to pilots, to people that in front of you? How do you guys tell your story? How do you get the word out about that?
I think I think it has been an ad hoc approach to telling the story. And it sort of depends on who who's telling us. But I think we have stronger commitment now from our governing bodies that we've had in the past. We have a stronger commitment of administration than we've had maybe in the past. Well, we faced a challenge in that I think there have been city managers in Guthrie that didn't recognize the value.
Plethora of city managers.
Yes, we've had a plethora of city
You know, question 5 on stability test, it's always the lowest probably, but right next to neck and neck is question number 10. Cities and towns do a lousy job telling their story, and they have a good story to tell in a lot of regards. When we do our little talk or our little training thing, I say, look, everybody has a camera that will make a phone call. Let's capture some of these. Middle of the night when the water guy's up to mid-thigh in that hole, so your sink will work. But it's hard to get, municipal operations to tell their story in that. I think, and I don't know, it's ad hoc, it's just what I think. I think cities and towns are populated with middle-class people, and we want ways to brag, to talk about ourselves. That's true. Let's go on to the next thing. Why are you taking a picture of this? It's what we do. Meanwhile, local government is completely invisible to almost every citizen. You know why? Because it works. Nobody drives home and says, hey, no potholes today on that road. Nobody ever says that. Government works. Now, I know on the radio and national TV, everybody does work, but I'm talking about here, where we service people, government works. So we have to take that extra step to tell our story. And there's two audiences, there's three audiences. You have the pilots that you want to keep here, that you want to attract here. You have the community support, you have the local leadership support, and you've got people that can bring extra resources. So we ought to tell our story. We ought to do that.
You know, it's no secret that I worked in Norman for 20 years. So in Norman, and one of the things that I saw in my tenure as an airport director was that so often we, the airport folks, figure that if we talk to the ADO, the airport's district office, if we talk to the FAA, by God, we've done it. They're the ones that hold the money. They're the ones that I need on board. And if I talk to them, I've done all I can do. But you gotta remember, the FAA comes at this from a whole different point of view. That's the heavy hand of the federal government. You're by golly gonna do what I tell you to do. Now, I have had numerous meetings with Tom Cole, numerous meetings with Jim Minhall, numerous meetings with James Langford. Those people know because I've been there in their office and talked to them about the needs for the airport. And I think it's important for maybe the chairman, maybe the airport director to occasionally call them, hey, Representative, if you're here, Representative Vice, if you're here, could you come out and visit? Let me show you around and give them, you know, just a pinch of what's going on, because you gotta get above that ADO level. So, because one thing I did find is that gravity still works, all right? And so when the representative comes and the senator comes to the FAA, say, hey, let's get some of this done. That's what'll make a difference. So many times I think we just run in there, you know, Toby's seen it. You run in there, you get your engineer, you get your plan, you go to the FAA, say, this is what we've done. And that's where it ends. And it shouldn't, you still need those representatives. They're called representatives for a reason. Get them on board, help them, bring them out to the airport, show them around, talk to them. They want to hear, they want to know. Need to do that.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. Simon, I told you guys an hour ago when we began this our lecture that you can't get anybody to write a business book for public sector, so we have to steal private sector business book. Simon Sinek's gotten real rich doing the same thing I'm doing, except I'm not real rich. That's all that is, package. Solomon said it's not. And so one of his latest books 3 or 4 years ago, The Infinite Game. So part of, if you're on the governing body, or part of y'all, or airport manager, the infinite game is there's no beginning, middle, or end. We're here pulling on the road during our tenure. Somebody else will pull on the road back to work. So the easy thing about being a city manager is we're gonna pipe burst all the sewer pipe in this neighborhood. The beginning, the middle, and the end. Gonna go overlay half mile road. All it takes is no beginning, middle, and end. Your job really is a little frustrating that way, because you're constantly making contacts and relationships and telling stories, and you can't really tell that I go forward. But making attraction. But when the airport manager's phone shows up on, you know, somebody's phone number, he or she ought to know who he is. so he can advocate for you guys with the resources that you need. I tell city council people, when your mayors, and city council people, when your number comes up on the county commissioner's phone, they know who you are and they're adult for the state rep or the state senator, whoever, because you never have enough resources locally. Always mining for more resources. I gave a talk at the OML and OMAG put together an HR expo. There's a professor at OSU. And, professor. And so we both were speaking at that. And so, and then they had evaluations on speakers. And right up to the 11th hour at the last night, I was the most irate. And then somehow the speaker passed me. I don't know how he did it. I wanted to recount. He asked everybody in the room, what did your folks tell you how you can get ahead? And everybody said, work hard. He said, you know what parents tell their children how to get ahead? No people. So I said, work hard. So I think to myself, I knew that. Mom and Dad had told me to see. Work hard.
Well, I tell my students not to tell me that. I go around the room every semester and I tell them, I need you to list your greatest strengths, and I'd say, you cannot tell me that you work hard because you don't. And even if you do, it's not a virtue anymore. I mean, if you are out there with 40 acres and a mule and a plow, you are a candidate for national selection. You need to work smart, right? And that's what I want my students to do. So I want them to work smart. Because the hard work doesn't necessarily pay. There's lots of people. We can go to McDonald's, they're working hard. They're not getting rich. Well, McDonald's is good.
And today, today's effective work is the resources is knowing. One thing for me to say, I know that person. It's more important for me to say that person. So that really should be one of this guy's primary job. And your old job is exactly what you said, mining resources. There's nothing in their land.
Well, can I say a quick story? This sounds braggadocious, and I don't mean it this way. Tom Cole came to the University of Oklahoma about a month ago to give a speech about OU Airport receiving $36.5 million for development at the OU Airport. And when he got up to talk, one of the things he said, you know, he said, I was talking to Walt Strong a while ago, and I remember when I was a freshman in Congress about all the years that Walt came to my office and sat down and told me about the needs for his airport. 25 years talking about the needs, and suddenly it paid off because $36.5 million Tom Cole was able to lay his hands on and put it at that airport. J.C. Watts told me one time when I told him something finally made the capital plan. They said, "Walt, so soon?" And it's 25 years to get a new control tower now. Dude, you gotta talk to them. What you said. They've got to know your name. It shows up on their. Oh yeah, excuse me. Let me take this phone call and talk. It works, but you got to do it. And so many times, oh, gosh, I'm sometimes city managers, you'll find some employee of yours that comes and says, "I want to go to Washington for 3 days." Why? You don't need to be in Washington. You need to be mowing the grass. No, I need to go to Washington. Why do you do that? You get it. Okay, I'm preaching. I'll stop.
No, I mean, it's the hard work. There's no beginning, middle, or end. And city manager got used to that we do administrative things. Anything else on opportunities before we move to threats? All right, then let's have a fresh work.
It says you can see that, Paul, that's weird. You can submit, it lets you. submit more.
A long
It
list.
lets you-
Yeah, you're only allowed
I
one.
just thought it was interesting. That's.
Choose your one wisely.
No, you can. submit.
Okay, you can.
Just have retry.
Well, as we start to look at trends, I'm gonna say, thanks, Eddie, thanks for having me out. It's a good day, take care for many days. I really appreciate y'all including me in this. Hopefully it's been helpful to you, but everything, I'm appreciative of the opportunity to say that. For sure. I think. Let's do something.
Please, you can give it something.
Oh, okay.
Just hit the return.
It didn't give me three options this time, just gave me one.
Yeah,
Okay.
anyone that's switch saw that. Make sure we were paying attention.
Try.
So Eddie, you're not a big threat. The Edmond city manager put that on.
Scott didn't make a list, so I'm not sure.
Well, now it's gotten a little bigger, it's changed colors, so.
Let's expand on it.
No, let's leave that alone till after I. Complacency.
All right, that was me. Okay. You know, if everything's running good, the city father is saying, well, why do we need to spend more money? You know, we're gonna have pilots out there. It's a good little airport. We really don't need to expand or do anything. That's one of my fears.
All right, so that goes also to the two things we talked about, looking over the horizon, having long plans, and then effectively telling our story. And continuously telling our story for various audiences. So the complacency for staff that's keeping up with the thoughts here is not on site necessarily, it's out there. Okay, all right. That could also maybe be disinterest from partners. I mean, look, flying always seems exotic, it's expensive, not many people involved in it. Why is that affect me? Right, so there's that hurdle to overcome. Trained workforce, are we talking about AMPs and?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, I mean, one of the things that we face here is, you know, in some places, you know, if you look at Jones Riverside, for example, they have a number of natural sources for workforce. They have, you know, Spartan is there and Tulsa Community College has.
I'm talking about Jones.
Yeah, they have, you know, an aviation program.
There's OSU, I don't know if you have.
OSU has a flight program. I don't think OSU, but hopefully because they tech program.
If they do, it's not associated with you. So that would be good.
No, it's not there for me. On campus, no more. Do they ever? Okay. I don't.
Tulsa has one, yeah. Trying to think who else has. I guess Jones has also. Campus. Sure. Is there another names?
Gordon Cooper, Sean.
Okay.
So so there's one of the things on your stability test is economic development, right? So there's two different ways.
if I'm gonna sell hot dogs, I better show up with a cart, and there's buns and mustard.
Right.
Or there's the city wants hot dogs and they're gonna help get beer, and get going, so. How does it work here? If I wanted to have a avionics shop or a AFP shop, I need to bring my stuff, be self-sufficient, or is there funding to recruit and help get something like that done? How do we operate?
Pretty much self-sufficient.
So I'm bringing the dogs, the buns, the cart, and the mustard.
The airport,
Little hangar, you gotta build a hangar, then turn it over to the city in 40 years.
the airport proper can't incentivize. That violates FAA grant assurances. So the airport has to charge fair market rent. One way a municipality has incentivized as well as really uses their development authority to come and separate. The airport still gets the rent that they're supposed to on a hangar, but the development authority subsidize whatever business they're trying to make. But the airport itself can't do any sort of incentive.
And we partner on the city's side, they've got the key. Partner there to those jobs. City report better.
Bigger spaces, those bigger commercial spaces. But doesn't the Metro Tech for Oklahoma City, we did the David mention? There was it out on MacArthur? Yeah, and now they've moved one over to, well, the Norman Tech. There's still one on Blue Rock. Metro Tech. Is it still there? Okay. So there's a couple of other, and then, Red River down in Alphas. If, wherever the Votech is in Alphas, they've got it.
Well, staff can capture some of those ideas. Threats, lack of direction. We've touched on pretty much all of these. We haven't touched on higher priorities of partners and lack of direction. Let's touch on those so staff can more completely capture your thoughts about those two things. Lack of direction first.
On the lack of direction, yeah. I base that statement on, you've got a master plan that was built in 1998. Is that what the date is? That is way too old. And I've talked to several people that say, okay, Guthrie Airport, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I don't have an answer, because there's no master plan that says, this is what we want to be when we grow up, and this is how we get there. Gosh, folks, you gotta have that. You have to have that. Because otherwise it can be willy-nilly. When federal money becomes available, you say, oh, well, what's the alligator closest to me? I'm supposed to be draining the swamp, but this alligator's closest, I'm gonna shoot it first because I got money available to me. But that doesn't get you any further down the highway to your destination, but you gotta know what your destination is.
I've got similar answers. I put down in action. Stan, you and I are probably the two people in the room here the longest now. But how many years have we had in this room the same conversation over and over and over? I mean, a lot of talk and no action. Not necessarily anybody's fault, no action, but we've had a lot of talk with no follow-up. We've had lots of dreams about the plans. We've been talking about that for years and years and years. But just now, in the last 6 months, year, now funding for the terminal, are we actually starting to move forward with some of that? So that's one of the things I look at. As I look at the long-term history of that, there's been a lot of talk, but not a lot of follow-up.
Keep in mind, you've had some pretty major shifts in leadership amongst both cities. Scott is in your second year in, I'm right up my first year. I'm on year and a half now. Cadence just completed his first year, or will next week. So I think you're starting to see some of those changes that kind of generationally with the position. And we talk about relationships. Congresswoman Bice has been here twice in the year that we met with Senator Langford yesterday. So we're having those conversations. Those relationships are continuing to expand. We didn't get here overnight, right? So we're talking about 3 years, 4 years of combined that so far. We're not going to undo the lack of an action that spans 2 decades in less than 5 years. So I think if we continue to work together and continue to row in that direction, I think we're hitting those goals. It's just
So you started a 25-year process. Won't talk. By talking with this individual.
sure.
25-year
I mean,
process.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Because, you know, but you started the process.
I think and it's even predates us, right? We didn't get a $6 million earmark with a new city manager from the airport director on all 3 sides. I think that happened because of relationship. And the fact that we got a $6 million project funding allocation, that's huge. That is something we should be talking about. And it's not just a win for Guthrie. It's not just a win for Edmond. It's a win for our region. And it truly does change this area. That's not an action. $6 million project airport of this size is not an action.
Can I ask a question? So, well, you said that you have like 25 years, and then I look at something, and Eddie and I are looking at the same cake and seeing 2 different types of crossing on Black Butter. Did part of that 25 years seem like inaction? I mean, you're trying, but it's a lot of talk doesn't happen.
But what are you trying for? If you've got the senator,
Well,
if you've got the representative in your office, you say, yeah, we need this, we need this, and we need this, and we've got a really great airport, we choose some money from the airport to do what?
Well, we
You gotta
gotta-
have that, you gotta be able to put a label on that continuously.
and we've had that plan, we not, I mean, we've talked terminal, it's not been a goal forever here. Yeah.
I guess I'd like to see the 23-year-old plan or 24-year-old plan. I'm not familiar with it, to be very frank. And so, depending on what's on that plan may still be relatively current. I don't know. Or it could be woefully out of date. And I think that, you know, the fact that I'm not familiar with it doesn't bode well for me as a board member. But certainly I think that if that plan is woefully out of date, then it's difficult for any of us to articulate any kind of future or direction.
While some of the things in the plan, I think remain and should. Some of your justification, the foundation that you would bring that forward with is weak or it's expired.
Better rationale exists for some of those
Yes.
ideas.
Yes. And, yes. It just needs to be. And I don't remember, Toby, we used to update them, every 10 years? 15 tops. And if you've got a quarter of a century gone by without updating that, taking a look at what's our base aircraft now? What are our operations now? Do we have, has the weather changed? Has it shifted to where we're getting more or less of this? Do we need to worry? You see what I'm saying? There's just so many things that can change in that. I think you have to have that to be able to move forward.
I think part of the reason why it started getting longer between updates is FAA has added so many new mandatory things to the master plan process that it has become incredibly expensive. I'm not saying it's not needed, it's just no longer can it be accomplished for the budget that it could have.
Well, that's why they
Even
did,
10 years,
that's why they did action plans for a little while, because we were doing just a piece of it.
we find ways to
instead
solve
of the
something
whole
else.
Process.
Yep, no, I'm totally with you.
But it's all too expensive, and the FAA doesn't help us in any of that, folks. I'm not a fan of federal aviation administration. Never have been, still am not. I'd go ahead and get it out this way right now.
What is Scottsville master plan doing based on?
It's in a slide.
It won't be cheap out here, it's gonna have a lot of videos.
Guys, thanks for your contributions. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. Mr. Chairman, I would suggest, you all, that you've heard some things that need to be on your agenda going forward and maybe kind of a semi-permanent part of your agendas.
I think that's absolutely correct.
Planning and communication. Planning and communication, those are the highest uses of y'all's time. Operations is not the highest use of y'all's time. Planning and operations is the highest use of y'all's time. That should be reflected on your agendas, and once again, under the open meeting law. And so if it's not on your agenda, you can't talk about it or act on it. These things are long-term things, they're expensive things, but that's the best use of your time. Okay? Let's have those things on our agendas routinely going forward. So that we get rid of planning, we get rid of dollar short.
Thank you for coming.
You all back here for stability test, we're going to, we'll give those to you or to.
I will take them, we will compile them, you'll get a compiled score. We'll also ask the, people who were absent, see if I can get with them online or somehow, or go through Peyton and get it. And then it's, the only value this has is trends over time on that, you need to take it.
If we could, just a minute, I think go backwards, but I would like to just touch on one of the threads that's on there is the higher priorities of partners. We talk about that, I think maybe.
Higher priorities of park.
I think it's
Partners.
partners.
I got eager to sit.
Okay, certainly, let me, I don't want to leave something hanging, no, sir.
Yeah, and I think this ebbs and flows over years. But when budgets are good, then it's easy to fund discretionary stuff like airports. And just being candid at, airports for 20+ years, big metros and small metros. And airports are tough to get people's interests. They think it's out of there, creates noise, overflights, things. So, I mean, right now, then you have a mayor. He's at the end of his, I'll call his career, his professional career. He was out Tinker for 31 years, so he understands aircraft and since the rest of my council does not. And they've probably never been out here. Well, I guess, councilor for part of the year that maybe shut up for weeks. But we changed that and put Walt on there largely because councilor just was like, yeah, airport, support it, but I got other things to deal with. But I think the challenge for both cities are, when you fix a pothole, or you try and argue about a longer runway. You fix the pipes, you do whatever. So I think the challenge both cities, particularly for Edmond, is keeping interest in the airport. I think we'll be there for about the $150,000, but I don't know beyond that. But they're ongoing interest. We talk about, oh, it's lazy eating. Those are a lot of those are a lot of what we're doing here. Largely doing these partners. We understand the direct impact of all the environment. We pursue Guthrie jobs. Yeah. We believe recent partnership. But I think long term it's just ongoing challenge for both cities is keep the airport people's radar about why we support it. But it's not. Where are we going? Piston aircraft or do we jet? Always there. Fire. It's an investment. The good news is we got some money. I think that got a lot of attention. We need to get congressional delegation that we have to get for construction. We can for Edmond, our budgets will continue to get tighter just because of funding challenges. That we highlight the airport, but we look at all discretionary funding about what's already. It's tough to talk to a citizen and say, supporting an airport that's allows us to have limits for cities. So,
I think that's a valid point, and my involvement with the airport started when I was 13 years old, and I started taking lessons here. My mother was on city council, and she was the first woman to represent Ward 3 on city council, and Tracy can talk to this as well. There was a big difference there's less of a difference between west side and east side in Guthrie than there was when I moved here and when I was growing up. There was definitely a divide in our city, and when my mother was on council, she represented the west side, and there was a feeling of why are we expanding a runway to build a business for people that, you know, are not from here. And the response was because it might provide good jobs for your children and give them a reason to stay here. And so when I got on city council the first time, we started doing the second runway extension. People came to me, I represented the west side, and they came to me and they said, why are we building an airport for $1 billion? And my response, we're not building an airport for $1 billion. The airport's there. The airport's there. We're extending a runway. And you have to educate people as to why this airport is important and the economic development that it brings. You know, the Lazy has an economic development, right? Even though it's not in a lot of the hotel space that is taken out because we don't have enough hotel space in Guthrie when they have a big place. So I think those kinds of things, and when they have an event in Lazy, the ramp is full of aircraft that are spending money in both Edmond and Guthrie and contributing. You know, those dollars bounce around communities 13 times before they leave. And that is enormously important part of how we tell it short. But I think we do have to do a better job of educating. And as you said, you've got council members who, you know, I know David Chapman knows about it, but he's no longer on city council. So it is a struggle, and I think it is one of those things that we can't just have one conversation. We can't just have one conversation with price. We can't have just one conversation with a constituent about why this is. It's got to be an ongoing thing, and you're correct. That is very frustrating when I'm answering the same things over and over and over again. You know, I mean, one of the reasons I became a college professor is because it is nice. It means psychologically, what I do is very nice. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And just about the time I am exhausted, I get a clean slate, and I get to start over again, or I get a break. And there isn't necessarily a break in this, in telling a story and keeping up with that.
Just to make the city managers extra happy with me on my way out the door. All I do is go around and steal ideas, good ones and bad ones. You guys will categorize this idea on your own. City manager Mustang, getting back to telling a story and communication. Once, twice a year, they have their city council meetings at various city facilities, not a city hall. So they're actually on site. You know, drink water. Everything. One thing to hear about it, see the PowerPoint slides, and read the black ink on the white paper. It's another thing to actually be out and say, okay, this is what we make the budget, this is what we're doing. You know, I thought Tim Murray was very good idea. I never did it back in the day. I don't know anybody else. But it might be one way to help tell the story. Aiden, you get your notes?
I appreciate it.
You got something to do for the next week or so?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Scott, you want to take a break for 5 minutes? Stretch your legs, go to the bathroom.
Build on what you said, time that it's not only We,
Really?
Departments of the team priorities.
And they were telling you that you and your.
Not all of the same, over here.
Yeah, that place. We did a call for them. It's a can for them and it's. And stay outside of the mayor and I. On the airport. Having the here the entire call the aviation club. My experience is over time.
Yeah,
no.
And it's. Very. I was waiting for the airport generates excellent job.
That was the job.
I'm still. Yeah, you're going to do.
yeah.
Extremes. Like, hey, but this is what it's doing. It's doing.
Let me know how that is.
You know. Okay.
Actually.
One time at a time.
From her.
So we really high, these museums, parks, this stuff, it's like, oh, that's great, but pick up the trash.
And I know, yeah. We don't have some better understandings right now. Tremendous number of brand owners.
Work together, it's beneficial relationship.
Makes it easier. She was very, very highly. It's very much.
You know, I don't know where many people are seeing what Bucky was good. And we talked about what you know. I don't know two of her, I don't know her. There, first year, no, maybe something. Oh, she's just one of these. Does that show? As from. You know, that's our competition.
I do think in the last 2 years. We were finance together, it's my buyers.
And dinner to the second and last day there. And sharing
The airport's documents
to say exactly what you are.
Yeah.
Finding.
And you know, we spent a lot of our resources, we have a lot of this.
And the conversation is not that pleasant. Yeah. We agree.
Pretty unheard of, they mean,
Yeah, I'm just gonna speak in there.
also the intentionally got state level, say, yeah, we
We
need.
need, that was one of our reservations.
I think, you know, there's, I
Not,
guess there's been a lot of years, not a lot of stuff. It's, you know. It's pretty crazy. Hey, I'll share on this. Kind of, is there longer it goes, it's tough to kind of say.
and I, you know, I
Take advantage of it. What I need a height. Some of that. It plays a big deal. It's on customers like, oh, yeah, wait till I hear. Oh, I'm gonna text you on Monday and oh.
that was pretty good. I was
reserved things. You know, those are.
Sure. More than the sorry.
Yeah, you gotta have the accounts ready to be able to justify why am I making that.
We never have.
And we also. There's no setting, all the settings, a lot of settings here that were sports.
That's what I did. I'm having that benefit. Actually,
So,
it's,
you know, like with those things.
yeah, so at one point in time.
And you've been here long.
Director was a woman named Kay Way, and she really understood the airport because her husband was.
So we were newcomers years ago.
Yeah.
You've been here the whole time.
Yeah, he's been.
You don't know how much.
Yeah, not as.
You know,
active roles.
The last, there was a love hate relationship. You never hear the positive. You were clearly not, and so when I was well.
Yeah.
But a lot of the, you get a long time, so. Yeah, no, I think we were similar here, but it was the whole day. I had heard about you, long story, it was straight. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
with their.
Yeah, it's how much are the fact that you get on that pool.
We got a lot of interaction. We just found it, we said, hey, we're.
It seems to relate, so it's minor financial.
What we know.
Yeah, yeah, you can send or I can move.
You're gonna have to all take the detailed list, whatever the highest and greatest.
So everybody dealing with.
Yeah, yeah.
You see the company goals. The west side. There's always.
Well, how's the family?
Doing good.
Until we get in there, we can.
This spring happy now.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, when my kid was growing up, every little face, he was, man, I wish he was.
Yeah.
Then he trained, wow, I really like this. And then they become, they said, oh, wow. Sit in the military school. So, still raising goats?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How many gots?
Oh, we're 200 right now.
Oh, my gosh.
But I'll take 50 this Thursday night. That's like. Fix existing, I wonder if you.
Pretty much gonna be all.
Are you selling mainly to Muslim people?
So this is an auction, but that's what. the market is.
yeah.
It's doesn't crumble, that's the market.
Yeah.
You don't have the-
I was reading an article up in, it's Dearborn, Michigan, where they've got this huge Muslim, they're pretty much taking over the town. I know we were in Ohio and followed the summit up there, I turned down the street and everything is in Arabic and everybody's giving me dirty look and stuff. But anyway, it's talking about, you know, those guys will sacrifice the goat and sheep. And
Well, wait a minute.
That's the way you're looking. I haven't been on your property.
I don't, that's not gonna happen. Here's the clicker.
Sister City go by.
Easy enough, no, that's.
Are we ready? So we need gavel. I've never had an input before doing my. So, all right.
So Caden asked if I would run through the 5-year capital improvement plan, and he did the hard part and put together an outline of slides for me, so I didn't have to do a whole lot.
Okay.
But just kind of why do we do this? The FAA would like for us to put together a 5-year plan. We don't necessarily have to update that every year if nothing changes, if we just move everything up the list, but it's been my experience in the business. I haven't worked with anybody yet that sets that plan years 1 through 5. And in year 5, we do what we said we were going to do in year 5. There's always reasons that we have to tweak the plan and make changes, and you guys are no exception. And this time it's going to be because of some additional funding. So that's a great problem to have. So, and I think, was there a copy of this in their packet?
Yes, in your packet, you'll have a larger version of this, actually readable.
And so this was the summary from the 5-year plan that was submitted to FAA last year. For 2023, we had a project program for land acquisition. Those funds, that would be funded through the Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics, the ODAA. This form still says the OAC on it, but they've since changed their name. That grant is still available to you. So as we enter into negotiations with Martin and Cogburn, that is still, that offer is still on the table from the state to have a 95.5 grant for land acquisition, even though we're outside of 2023. Then in 2024, we have our discretionary funded project to reconstruct the south portion of the parallel taxiway and expand the terminal apron. The expand terminal apron piece is going to be a little bit of a misnomer. What the FAA is going to allow us to do in this discretionary project is, and there's a graphic. We'll come back there. We'll show you this graphic. So this is the layout of what the parallel taxiway, the realigned parallel taxiway will look. This is, sorry, an ultimate configuration of the terminal apron that is not going to be built in its entirety to begin with. But this blue line that you see right down here is called the taxiway object-free area. We can't have anything inside of that. We can't have parked aircraft. And so what the FAA will let us do in the parallel taxiway project is essentially build. Laser doesn't show up on screen. it will let us build out to this object-free area. The FAA gets kind of particular about funding apron projects with discretionary money. That's a lower priority to them. But if we build just the 35-foot wide taxiway, and then we come back and we want to connect the apron to it in a future project, we have to turn around and close the taxiway again for construction. So from a construction phasing standpoint, they will allow us to build out to that object-free area for the future apron, but within the taxiway project. Back up here.
Is that the same area that you now have ports? In that? One is gone.
It won't be in the OFA, but does need to be.
No,
part
on
of
that,
conversation.
on that ramp area that you're talking about, Bill.
So go back to the wall. So there's a port right here, and then there's a port right here. So yes, at some point, there needs to be a conversation for the second one to.
Why wouldn't both of them go away?
One's gone.
Who, you know who holds, did that go with the FBO? Did that lease go with the FBO or not?
Yes, and Chris Easley has bought that one, and I have questions.
Okay. So that's probably a topic for future board agenda. Is
If
what-
it's a parking area, if it's a ramp area, what do you want to hang right in the center?
The FBO has been notified at this point that those porta ports need to be gone.
So on the land acquisition, wanted to just briefly show, so this is on the south end. This, quit accident, hit the button, sorry guys. This parcel, this entire parcel right here is owned by the Martins. What we plan to do is approach them with basically a 3-part offer to buy just this 2 acres. That really would be most, you don't have to have it for the parallel taxiway, but it is very close to our grading limits for that. Second offer to buy A plus B, which would be kind of this nice flat area that could be potentially developed. And then the city has already purchased property from them before, off the end of the run, we've already split their property. And so, they were interested in potentially selling all of this, so they would no longer have to split. So we're essentially going to get appraisals on A plus B plus C, and then see what they would be able to, as far as selling. Yes, sir.
Doesn't the topography there in that yellow square, doesn't that drop?
It drops off. Yep.
Quite a bit.
It does. So for future hangar development or anything like that, probably not going to be terribly desirable. It's more of a bargaining chip with them. Well, they may not be agreeable to just selling the 2 acres or 5 acres, since this will be the second time we've come back and taken property from them. So it's one of those scenarios where it may sweeten the pot for them to be willing to sell.
So you flex the eminent domain muscle?
What's the value of any of this property? Help me understand why we want to do this.
So let's go to a little bit different screen here. This entire area, we'll talk about this in a second, but this topography wise is probably the most developable of any property that we could possibly have for the airport. So as far as expansion, this area on the west side is going to be easiest with the least amount of government. So this second parcel that we have shown is owned by Mr. Cogburn. He actually owns all of this behind the apartments, all the way down to Prairie Road. We have drawn somewhat of an arbitrary line that lines up with this line that the Economic Development Authority owns. Mr. Cogburn would like to sell the entire thing. There was a point in time about 3 years ago where it was thought that the city might want to own it all and develop part of it for a business park. I think that sentiment has since changed, and so Caden and I met Mr. Cogburn 2 weeks ago. And he was agreeable to considering just selling a portion of the property. So we actually have an amendment to go before council right now that will do all of the appraisals and then the negotiation on both the property with Mr. Martin, or with Martins and with Mr. Cogburn. Talked about that. Again, this is the footprint of what the future parallel taxiway will look like. The FAA does not want us to have direct access to the runway from parking apron. That's the reason this new taxiway right here will be offset from the terminal apron. We can't have a straight shot out, or we have to paint green islands. And then we will also, reconfigure, this angled taxiway will go away. We will reconfigure this area right here, so that we can get on more of a 90-degree geometry, which is what FAA standard is. Down there on the bottom, you can see that's where the new terminal building and parking lot for the terminal are planned, but that's not obviously part of the parallel taxiway project.
Why is the FAA opposed to high-speed taxiways now?
They,
I mean, it's so nice, you know.
I don't disagree with you as a pilot for, their argument is that from a capacity standpoint at a GA airport, that they're not needed. And the best worst example I can give you, Stan, is at Tulsa Riverside. Busiest airport in the state, and FAA made take them out.
No kidding.
Well, and as a pilot too, when you're taxiing out, if you're coming at a 90-degree angle, then you just look here. But if you're coming at 30 or 45, you're looking back here to try to see if there's any difference.
Yeah,
That's one of the reasons why they've quit allowing that.
We can't do the angle at all.
yeah, to me, it's more of that, you know, you get off the runway quicker, you know, as you're exiting. I don't look at it as I'm gonna go up there and access the runway from the midpoint.
Yeah, but you're not driving an F4 or a 737.
Well, that's true.
So you really don't, the need for a high-speed taxi.
We didn't necessarily say I agree with all of FAA's philosophy on that, but it's one of those things that is the standard, and so if you want the money, you play by the. All right, so then in FY 25, what we had shown on the CIP was based on the original ask in the earmark request, and I'm still working to not use that terminology, but congressionally directed spending request. And we had asked for 7.5 million. They came back with 6 million. And so that will change the overall budget that we have for the terminal building and what we're calling phase 2 of the terminal apron. But in reality, that is going to be the first phase of apron that would actually be built up to the new terminal building. And so we now know we have that allocation, and so that project will be granted under an FY 25 grant. Sorry.
How old is that number?
That number, yeah, to be perfectly honest, was extracted. It's the budget from, I was gonna do this.
Okay.
But,
But it's been there for how long?
the budget for the terminal building, including the restaurant, was $4 million 2 years ago. And so one of the things we are doing right now is updating the cost estimate for the building, for which, and we'll get to that in a second, for which the schematic design has been completed. To figure out, okay, to build that building today, where are we at? How much of that 7 do we have left for terminal? So that is the current exercise. And one thing that I do want to point out is when this process first started, the Department of Aeronautics, their terminal building program was a 50-50 grant, and it still is, but their participation was capped at $500,000. About a year ago, that cap has been raised to $1 million. So over here, where we show $500,000 of ODAA or OAC and $500,000 match, those numbers could both be $1 million if the cities choose to do that. But each city would then have to contribute $500,000 to the project as opposed to the $250,000 that is planned out. And I'm not, obviously not committing anybody to anything, but that is an option, that budget could go up by $1 million if the cities want to fully leverage the ODAA from the grant.
Is it 90-10?
The terminal building is still 50. The terminal building program. So we're gonna have, the accounting will be fun. The FAA grant will be a 90-10 split. Okay. But the ODAA's participation in the terminal building has to be matched dollar for dollar by the.
But in our case, then that dollar per dollar is really 50 cents for 50 cents. Because
In the
50
case of
cents.
Edmond versus.
Correct.
Correct.
Correct, still is dollar. Okay.
So this breakdown is based on what was submitted in the congressionally directed spending request. And at the time, both cities were only committed to $250 apiece for a total of 500 from the airport. And so, because at the time, that was the cap of the ODA, they capped their participation on terminals at that mix. So that's probably something that the board needs to discuss and ultimately take back to respective cities if that is desired. But we do have the opportunity to bring another $500,000 from the state to the table if combined the two cities want to put another $500,000.
What's the possibilities of that happening? Capturing another $500,000, say.
100%. Grayson to do it tomorrow if the cities agree.
Good.
So then this graphic shows the location of the future terminal building, with none of the apron in front of it. This is what it would look like if you sat it out there today, as well as the parking lot. One of the things that discussed with Caden and Eddie is there a way, this really is the prettiest front door, having our maintenance building right there as you come in. So that may be something long-term that we want to look at. Very, very briefly looked at, would there be a way to come down Pulse Drive, which is right here? I don't think that's going to be any better of a front door. I drove down that the other day after we talked, and it's really, I'd rather look at your maintenance building, to be honest. So these, and there may be some of you in here that haven't seen this, be happy to get everybody a copy of that. I think Caden probably has them digitally as well. But these are just some excerpts from the schematic design for the terminal building that has already been completed. The process, assuming that everyone desires to continue to move forward with the current design, is that we would take the schematic design and then prepare construction documents or bid documents so that could be put out on the street to get bids. Sir.
Are we locked into a restaurant in that thing?
So
the reason big restaurant business is tough. And you got all kinds of restaurants when you leave Guthrie coming down this way that you're gonna have to pass, unless there's a draw, like Ponca City has that great Mexican restaurant. Who are we gonna get to run it? Are we gonna take bids? I'm just wondering if that's something that we could do without.
So you may recall, Stan, during the design of that, we basically had two different tasks. We were to come up with a terminal building that basically draw a line right here, and you can see these column lines.
Yeah.
Come up with a terminal building layout that we could build for $2.5 million, and have a second option to add the restaurant space beyond that column line with a budget of $4 million. So that was the approach we took.
Okay.
Now, my understanding from Eddie, and I'd want him to confirm this, is that the restaurant component and the jobs creation component of the restaurant were one of the things that drove us getting selected for the congressionally directed spending. So when I asked that question to Eddie, okay, are we doing the restaurant or are we not doing the restaurant? My understanding was that the restaurant was a mandatory part of this. It was one of the reasons the project was great. So if he comes back, we can ask him that question.
Also seems like a little driver for the whole airport in general.
Yeah,
that's one of the major things that we need.
It's an important,
And I do think,
politically, locally, it's an important component.
Eddie, since you weren't in here, I did a lot of talking for you, but if you were to fact check me real quick.
I think you meant that we're talking for Scott.
Yeah, okay. The question arose, the terminal building or the restaurant component of the terminal building.
Yes.
Did I understand that as a function of the grant we received, it was understood or anticipated by our legislators that is a part of the project? That's not necessarily negotiable.
Absolutely. I don't think I think that was one of the sales for the communities, was a possibility of another economic development project.
Okay.
It's my understanding that's we better be
We were doing that.
Okay.
So, and now as far as, I do think, to follow, FAA's leasing practices and everything, I do think it would be good to put out an RFP and to get proposals of who wants to put a restaurant in there. And so we can compare, it'll be hard to do, compare apples to apples, but at least you can have some comparisons, and look at the revenue and at least at one point in time. I know that Mr. Bartman that has the FBO had expressed pretty significant interest in it because I guess he owns a restaurant in Weatherford and was thinking about trying to open a second location here.
The airport manager, the Weatherford, they didn't put a restaurant in when I was talking to him. He said, no, we didn't want one. We specifically said we don't want a restaurant.
That was my question. So
What was the thought process on that, Stan?
He didn't tell me the thought process. He said we decided we didn't want it.
they would have honestly been fairly space constrained, in order to do that on their airport, but, anyways, I was glad I didn't misspeak for you, Eddie, so.
Well, their space, I mean, they've got the museum on the airport there, so that's a limiting factor in terms of the space, but
That's a big draw too.
it's a big, yeah.
And I think part of it too was local funding. I mean, coming up with the local match to the projects.
And there's
is
also-
not insignificant.
There's also a local political aspect to it, which is
Lucille's.
So,
Well, I'll tell you from years of experience, if you've eaten at Ozzy's Diner in Norman, there were days when you couldn't stir them with a stick. I mean, it was that busy in there, but I tell you folks, most of that activity was local folks. It was not people flying in. Ponca City Enrique's is a horse of a different color, okay? It really is. It's very good. And he's got a reputation that spans, I don't know, I used to fly in there 30 years ago. But to find one of those and have it be profitable and not based on just local traffic.
And if we look at our airports, and Mr. Chairman, you mentioned earlier, the airports that have restaurants, almost every single one of those has some sort of industrial park component nearby. Ponca has the industrial park right there. And Westheimer, I guess it would be maybe an exception to that. Enid has the Coke plant. Anytime you go in the restaurant in Enid, it's full of Coke nitrogen plant employees. Ardmore has the industrial park there. And so, but I do think we don't have a whole lot of restaurants here on the south end of town with the Bowtech right there that maybe you draw off. So I would agree.
what about Fragrance? I mean, in Amarillo, I asked them at their restaurant what percentage is people flying in, and 75% of their business is local business. There's local people that want to come out.
Anyway, yeah.
When I got Enrique, it seems like it's all local folks too.
And if you go to Woodring, it's also a lot of local traffic, but it comes from breakfast with each other.
What's this current status of the runway cafe at Wiley Post? Is it closed? Yeah, that's probably, folks, that's probably why the people at Weatherford just didn't, we don't want one. Now, I understand what you're saying, you look at this as an economic development opportunity, but it's gonna be a tough one to climb.
Absolutely, and I think every opportunity that we evaluate is going to have its,
Yeah.
every opportunity comes with its pluses and minuses. However, I will say the airport director, Hayden has had some food trucks out here a couple times a month, and I think we've had a tremendous response to the food trucks. Hayden, would you say the food trucks are?
Yeah,
I mean, not every one of them has been great, don't get me wrong, but it's a good seed into not only folks who are here on the airport, but also bringing folks to it. And I've seen that and I've heard that in the business community. A couple of folks that we've been in leadership Guthrie with who were bankers in the community, they come out every time we have a food truck. So sure, it's local folks, but it's still bringing awareness and folks in the future.
What was the configuration for the view for those eating at the restaurant? Do they get to see operations?
So this is the air side. Right here. So there's outdoor seating on
And this, I'm to my back as I'm looking at the air side here.
to your back
It's gonna be to your right.
is the new terminal. So that this is the overhang for that outdoor seating right here in this corner here. And so that is looking out. at
So the building parallels the runway.
Correct.
Where was that, Tony? You were saying.
Sorry. So that outdoor seating was on the rendering, we'll go back to that, it was on this corner of the building. And so it's looking out, this will all be.
So not directly looking at the,
So be this corner right here, it's looking out at the ramp, looking over.
oh,
So.
Now, the personnel that's gonna be at the new terminal, is that gonna be staffed by the city? Or are we gonna require the FBO to send somebody over there, hire somebody to keep it manned, or how's that gonna work?
So one of the things that the state would like to see us do is to have a similar RFP process for the space within the new terminal building to stand, which I think you're probably the only one in here that was involved in the original design. But we have, an FBO desk and potentially an FBO office in there with the idea that the FBO would have the ability to take credit cards, process payments for the fuel out of the new terminal building.
Okay.
But I think that, the state is aware of all of the dealings that have gone on and all of the contracts that, have been assigned now to the new FBO. And I think everyone would agree some of those originally were maybe not in the airport's best interest. They're probably on the low side. And so what the state doesn't want to see us do is just automatically pick that up and put somebody in a brand new building. This is an opportunity to address some of those things with the FBO through a request proposal process.
How many FBOs do we have?
One.
How many FBO spaces are we gonna have?
I don't know that we'll have the demand for two for quite some time, Walt, but
Well, I think.
I know what
I think
I know
I'm
what you're
trying to
headed.
say here is with this, we'll have three, won't we?
No.
Don't you have one over here?
Same
Thing.
outfit on.
It's the same outfit.
Okay, you got one here.
No, the FBO is, they own that hangar. And they have bifurcated their pilot lounge, basically. There's small aircraft and then there's their jet.
Okay.
So they have.
To answer your question, would totally be an opportunity for a second FBO. And part of the RFP process, if someone put in a proposal that wants to give a higher number than the current, then that's something that the airport can certainly evaluate.
But Stan, was your question, well, who's gonna live in that building?
Yeah,
full-time?
to staff the desk when somebody comes in wanting services, is who's gonna be there, if Apex says, hey, we've got our own lounges, we've got our own desk here, why should we send somebody over there? And then nobody says, well, we're not gonna, there's no offers, is it just gonna be because I've been to airports, you walk in, there's no freaking anybody around.
Wiley Post terminal building is a perfect example.
That's a perfect example. Sure. And others too. And so, and that's kind of a bad thing when you go to an apartment, an airport, and you can't find anybody, and then you got, well, where do I taxi to get gas? Sure. So that was my question, who's gonna staff?
Well,
Will you relocate to the new building?
yes, that's correct. So Kane will be there. And of course, we would assume that we will have an appeal in there. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I have no predetermined idea or notion of who that is. I think we do it just like we do any city process. It goes out for a competitive bid. Sure. And so that response follows those guidelines. Obviously, this facility, we borrow the space that we're sitting in right now. The rest of this facility is leased. So we should treat this facility just as we do any other hangar, right? So the other hangars have leases. This hangar has a lease. This hangar has value, whether this lobby is used or not. I think there's a ton of value that's could even be expanded. So I hear your concern. I think it is a valid one. We'll just have to be prepared for the challenge.
And you recall, Stan, when this was originally designed, a lot of the things that are in place today that weren't even in place 12 months ago were still up in the air. And so that's not to say that there may not be some small tweaks that ultimately you decide you want to make.
The good thing, go back to the restaurant sector. We know that restaurant has demand right now. It's Robin told us from the beginning that he wants to be here. So it'd be different if we were building a restaurant with
Nobody want, we were
Purely speculative.
if we were doing it with the attitude of you build it, they will come, right? That would be something different. There has been more than one expression of interest.
But what happens if he says, yeah, I want this restaurant, puts one in, and it's the same thing as Boomerang downtown, which is what his restaurant is out in Rutherford. And after a year, said, you know, man, I'm losing my butt on this thing, I'm gonna shut it down. Then what? That's what, I've had a 100-seat restaurant before many, many years ago, and it's a tough business. With personnel and what the food prices are now, you can't even go to McDonald's without you out about $15 for a Big Mac price.
One of the things that I wonder if we can do from a strategy standpoint is limit our investment in the space.
Yeah, I
Build
think
it,
it's a space.
but then the equipment, all the kitchen equipment, all the furnishings, let's let potentially, I don't want to speak for the city, either city, but one of the things we could do is let that investment be on the tenant. As opposed to us, and see, that's not how we did Enid. At Enid, the airport actually bought all of the equipment that went in there, freezers, the grill, I mean, everything that the airport owns.
I think that's this, was it Aussie, did they own their own equipment, or was that city owned?
The university owned it, and the university owned quite a bit of it. The hood always seemed to be problematic over the grill, and we were all the time paying to have that fixed. But the furnishings within the restaurant, tables, chairs, things like that, Aussies, they own all of that.
But the city owns you own the actual mechanical systems.
Yes.
That's unusual because generally in commercial restaurant space, the restaurant space, the landlord doesn't.
And I think that's all topic for conversation as we get into the nitty-gritty of both the design and the RFP process and the lease also.
So we can build it where it's vacant, and then whoever leases it, then they put their own equipment. That's a viable option.
Yes, I certainly think so. And now,
Because I'd hate for it to get stuck with a bunch of equipment and the guy goes belly up and he said, I'm losing money, so you gotta.
and there may be some advantage rather than get it built and then, okay, now we're gonna start this process. We may try to run some of that in tandem, ideally that you could get those bids. And so there may be an opportunity to, if the lease is all signed and there's a certain way that they want to finish something out, that would be something that we're willing to pay for. Okay, we can finish it out that way. You want to move the interior door from over here to over here because that fits your layout. I think there's some flexibility there if the timing is right. All right, so future projects that may want to add to the CIP. Walt and Stan stole half of my sermon earlier today. But one of the things that was discussed was a master plan. A full-blown master plan can range anywhere from $350,000 to $500,000. And a lot of that depends on what are we trying to accomplish. If within that master plan, we are trying to provide the justification for the runway extension, there's significantly more that goes into that as far as the planning, as far as looking at obstructions. If we're truly going to use that as part of our justification, the FAA is going to require us to do what they call an ADIP survey, used to be AGIS, and changed the names. That survey alone is about $100,000. And so there's the opportunity to try to right size this planning effort. And that's one of the things that I think we should discuss, and maybe not necessarily in detail right this second, but to outline what do we want to get out of the master plan? Is it truly we're just looking at the best layout for where do we want to put future taxi lanes, future hangars? Are we actually wanting to look at some of the business planning and how is the revenue going to work for this? There's kind of a wide range of things that we could accomplish inside that master plan. Or if it's a very narrow tailored view, what we've been doing in a lot of airports recently is we're now calling them a hangar development instead of an action plan. And we're able to do that out from under the FAA Airport Master Plan umbrella where we don't have to get all the TAP forecasts validated and approved through FAA. There's some savings in taking that approach. That hangar development plan may not accomplish everything that the board is wanting to do. So I think that what we would really need to do to add this project is to sit down and hear what are your goals? I know you said, what do you want to be when you grow up? But specifically, what are the things that we want to identify? And it may absolutely be a full airport master plan.
Well, if you want to get to a place where you're gonna land bigger jets, then you gotta be wider, you gotta be longer, you gotta be stronger. You go into those things, if you do a hangar development plan or an airport action plan as compared to a full-blown master plan, then you don't get the environmental looks. You won't get the outside influencing things that can put pressure against what you want to be when you grow up, if you don't identify those things. And that's why my head goes to a master plan, because then you know what the outside influences are that are gonna be pushing in on you or against you. If you just say, well, we can save money by doing this, yeah, you might save money for now.
But you might not have a full picture of what's going to
And Walt, I want to be clear, I'm not trying to talk anybody out of doing a
I know.
master plan. Just making sure that we pick the right things off the shopping list so that we don't hand you something that you said, well, there's 12 sections in here that I really didn't care to have. You know, we want to make sure we give you what.
Trust me, I know, I understand, but I just think that because what we have is so dated, it just seems to me like, there's been a lot of changes in America since 1998. And actually, you probably argue that the plan was put together in 96 and 97.
Dated, man.
So, that's 30 years.
Fencing, again, Stan stole my thunder. So now this project, you'll notice, is not on the current 5-year CIP. However, we did submit a project to Representative Bice's office for a fencing project. With that cost estimate right there, for next year's congressionally directed spending. I got my acronyms all confused. I'm trying not to call it earmarks. And so that is a project that has been submitted. That's not one that we've heard anything back on yet. One thing I will say, the FAA threw a curveball at us the other day that I have not seen in 17 years of doing this. I don't know if you've ever seen this or not either. Yeah, there is a provision in the AIP handbook that says unless you have a wildlife hazard assessment that documents the need for deer fencing, 5-foot tall fence is the most that FAA will pay for. You ever heard that before?
Good.
We've put 6-foot and 8-foot fence up all over the state.
My dog cleared a 5-foot fence.
I say all that to say, they may throw a little bit of red tape at us and say, if we're going to justify an 8-foot fence with a climb barrier, which is what we used in the estimate, we may have to do a wildlife hazard assessment. That's a study over a 12-month period, send a biologist out every month. And then at the end of that, you come up with a wildlife hazard mitigation plan, WHMP, still want to probably have it. Enid, of the 38 airports we work at, Enid is the only other one that we've ever had to do that out. And it actually wasn't because of deer, it was because their dump was too close to the airport, so it was a bird concern. So that project has been submitted for the congressionally directed spending, but we don't have it shown on our 5-year CIP anymore.
If congressionally, just what you call it, never mind. If congressional money, if congressional earmark brings the 1.3 million, does it still have to abide by FAA standards?
It is still an AIP grant, bound to AIP and eligibility. Like I said, that's the first time that little thing has been thrown out, and it's by a new program manager. That may be of the order that Glenn can override locally.
A new program manager at what level?
FAA. The new
What
FAA.
level of FAA? The ADO?
The ADO.
Washington?
No, the ADO. So that may be something we can override. I just, that is something that was thrown out at us about a month ago that I've never seen.
Well, I'm shocked.
Me too. And I guess maybe one of the things you should have identified too is if we go back to the original CIP, you'll notice that we have some AIG money that was programmed into some of our earlier projects. Now that we are getting the CDS, we're gonna need to find a home for that AIG money. Yeah, well, things are changing faster than you can keep up. We now, in addition to non-primary entitlement, there is a second program that Congress started in 2022 under the bipartisan infrastructure law. And it's called Airport Infrastructure Grants. The rules are basically the same as NPE, but for you guys, it is actually based on size. And so you got $295,000 in 22, 292 in 23, and 292 in 24. So it's basically a second program that runs parallel to your NPE funds. You can use both flavors of money on the same project, but they cannot be combined into the same grant. So if you use both on one project, you have two separate FAA grants funding one project. They have the same expiration rules that NPE does. So our 22 money, we have 22, 23, 24, and if it's not under grant in 25, we lose it. Unlike NPE, there's no transfers, there's no swaps, there's nothing like that. So we will have to find a home for $295,000 of AIG funds by an FY25 project. The next thing, taxi lane development. This is another project that we submitted to Representative Bice's office. They had requested that we cap our projects at no more than $5 million. And so we basically kind of wanted to try to run two horses. So we put the fence in and then we put the taxi lane in so that together those would add up to $5 million.
And Toby, I want to expand on that.
Sure.
That came as a relationship conversation. Hey, these $8 million requests are going to go in there. So don't send us a $10 million request to strengthen the whole road. Send us something that is practical, that you need for solid fencing, that you couldn't afford in any other capacity. And then the second was an exit lane. And we had that conversation before we submitted those projects, because originally, I believe we were going to try to submit, let's redo the road.
We'll come back to that in a later slide.
So just know that $5 million, not saying it's a magic number, but it was basically that's where you need to be.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they reach out to us after their portal had actually already closed?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I was not supposed to bring that up.
I didn't say that, but yeah. And again,
It did.
So we're feeling good about something out of that program.
there's another relationship, just so that the board's aware. Those are the relationships that we're.
Excellent.
And the basis for that $3.4 million, so that development is on part of the property that we are trying to acquire. And that's where we have done the schematics to estimate that project. That was for a taxi lane, kind of go two directions. It would support 10 100 by 100 hangars. And on the other side, it would support 10 75 by 75s. And to a degree, Walt, I mean, at this level, we're just kind of grabbing some of that. Other than that is what our current large hangar development area is 100 by 100s and 75 by 75s. In the estimate though, we actually used a 12-inch paving section for the 100 by 100s under the premise that if one day we are able to strengthen the pavement, we would already have built this to a higher weight bearing capacity. And this would be our big jet section.
Land acquisition still reimbursable.
It is. All right, so to continue that, if the congressionally directed spending does not happen, currently the Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics has us in their 5-year airport construction program for a project to construct taxi lanes on the newly acquired property or to be acquired property. And they have given us a budget of 1.9 million. So obviously that would be substantially smaller. But what they have also said is recognizing that we will need to spend that $295,000 of AIG money that would expire next year, if not used. They currently have this shown as a federal fiscal year 26 project. And you can see the state is kicking in $900,000 of state funds. If for some reason we don't get the congressionally directed spending for taxi lanes, the state would move this project up a year so that instead of it happening in federal fiscal year 26, it would happen in 25, allowing us to use that oldest AIG money. So in FY 25, we will have funding for a taxi lane project. I mean, one way or the other. The next project that I know has been discussed are hangars. That gives us the opportunity, if we own them, we can recognize the full revenue. Caden, I liked how you put the estimated costs on there, depends on size. We did go ahead and add a little bit of range on there. We've done 22 hangars in the past 2 years, and we're anywhere from $90 to $110 a square foot. That's for unconditioned space. We are trying, with the exception of 2 projects, we have kept everything under 12,000 square feet because that allows us to not have to do fire suppression. The fire suppression can get quite costly, especially if you plan to have any maintenance in the hangars while there's fuel in the aircraft. If that is a plan, then you have to go to foam. Lochner, one of my prospective competitors, did a hangar out in Elk City about 6 months ago, 5 months ago. And I think it was 100 by 150. I may have those dimensions slightly wrong, but they did it with some alternates. One of them was to have maintenance on aircraft with fuel in the tanks. So they did a foam fire suppression system as an alternate to $1 million. So we would strongly advocate to find a way.
What about wind loading?
So anything we do is going to meet IDC, International Building Code.
The 11510.
I think it's 115 would be for our zone is going to be 115. So, Kate, you did a really good job on this. The ODAA has 2 separate hangar programs. One is a grant program, one is a loan program. If you take the grant, it is a 40% state share, but they will allow you to bring any other money to the table as long as locally the city has a 5% share. So what that means is a lot of our hangar projects that we have ongoing right now are 40% state, 55% FAA, 5% loan. Whereas that's a difference from the terminal building project or terminal building program where you have to match the states dollar for dollar. They don't care as long as you have a 5% share, you can bring it down.
FAA is with money.
You've been out of it. We've broken all kinds of barriers, Walt. Yes, we are actually doing FAA funded T hangars in Goldsby as we speak and in Chickasha. I know, it's wild. We said for years, never, they'll never let us do it. We finally got it.
RJC wants it so soon.
The other option is a hangar loan. They do participate at a higher rate on that. However, you of course have to pay that back. Their interest rates are incredibly low, but it is on a 10-year term. I have one client that has done the loan and they wish heartily that they had done the grant instead of it. So there need to be some really strategic reasons on why you want to do the loan option versus the grant.
Toby, can you talk about the amortization schedule and something like that instead of 10-year payback? I mean, versus
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
and I understand that, but can we talk about that versus letting somebody else build their hangar? We could afford, is that the next?
To
step?
be crystal clear,
Okay.
not my slide.
I know.
That's your guy right there.
But I think it's important to have that conversation here. We talk about, okay, if we get a private hangar over 4 years, we're at $88,000 just on ground lease space, right?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, and I did tweak the numbers just a little bit, but Caden had me already teed up for success.
So sorry.
No, you're spot on. So just a quick example of 150 by 100 hangar. Now bear in mind that hangar requires fire suppression. So maybe we do that, maybe we don't, but it's a good example. On the right side, let's talk through if it was a private hangar to begin with. Ground lease is going, and I screwed up here. I've got something off there. The ground lease is going to generate us X amount over 40 years, somewhere we're off there, that 33 versus 22 is not right. But we're going to get some revenue off of that ground lease. Over on the other side, if the airport owns the hangar, what the state, we'll be clear, you own your airport, you run your airport, but sometimes with our funding partners, they do have some strings attached. One of the expectations of the ODA is if they are funding new hangars, we are leasing these hangars out at a rate that they should be. Arguably, statewide, hangars rent for far less than what they should. They rent for less than if you go downtown and get a little mini storage unit with way less square feet, you will pay more for the mini storage than you will for your aircraft. I'm an aircraft owner and pilot, and my airplane is right next to Ryan's. I have to pay rent every month. I understand the cost of that, but arguably, we're probably a little bit too low across the state on hangar rents. So the state's expectation is that for a new hangar, our rent should be somewhere between $2.50 and $4 per square foot per year. So if we start on the low end and we use $250, that same hangar should generate $37,500 in revenue for us, assuming we don't ever escalate that, which is obviously terrible. That would get us 1.5 million in revenue over 40 years. Spoiler alert, that won't pay. So that's why hangars honestly are not a good investment unless you have someone else helping you put the bill.
So let me ask you this, to be the city manager with no airport experience. Why do private sector folks want to build hangars if they don't?
I don't think we see that much speculation right now. The last speculative hangar that was built was 31. Or the two that the Latham's built. It was and I think it's before that was the one that Stan was a part of. Since 2011, the cost to build a TNT hangar has doubled. That is not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. It's exactly double. So I think that is the reason that we don't see that going on right now is because it won't fix it. I know that, and I recognize there's varying opinions, but I know that Brad Latham has made the statement that in order for him to go build exactly what's out there now in 30 and 31, where we think $385 a month now, his monthly rental rate would have to be over $500 to build the exact same thing. If he were to redo that today. He doesn't, the math doesn't. But as far, so I guess I would, to answer your question, I don't think that has happened. I don't think we're seeing a private speculative hangar. Now we're seeing the individuals do a private hangar that they are going to appreciate in their business. I think that is where the draw is that business appreciation for most of those that are using our grounds.
Is it fair to say, building materials were favorable, interest rates were favorable, finance project like that, it would make more sense. It's more helpful. Whereas today we're not the same.
I think that's 100% fair. I think our 40-year term is on the long end. Most airports were trying to keep that less than that on private hangars. But in order to actually make the math work, we had to go out that far. And we've been doing the 40 years thing for 10 or 15 years.
There's still demand for the private engineers.
There's absolutely demand. There's absolutely demand, but I think the only way, and that is one of the reasons that the state, that's one of the reasons that the ODAA worked so hard to get the legislature to give them the appropriations. Because if you go back 4 years ago, the ODAA had zero appropriations. Everything was through aircraft excise tax, and a small amount of fuel sales tax, and it's minuscule, and aircraft registration. I pay $10 a year to register my airplane in the state. $10. It's insane. But you talk about trying to raise that number, and oh my gosh, us pilots come out of the woodwork. So I guess 3 years ago now was the first time they got an appropriation. They got $2 million. That's when they stood up the hangar program, and it was just to distribute that $2 million. They said, well, this is probably a one-time shot in the arm. We're going to try to get as much done as we can. That's why the 40% number, that's why it was so low, was kind of spreading around. Then the next year they got $14 million. The next year they got $13 million.
And so we're definitely working in an entirely new era of state funding that we have not historically had ever before. And but because the math won't work otherwise, and because there's a demand for hangars, that's why the state is trying to make that investment and leverage the FAA dollars with it to get as much built now as possible.
Is this why Enid has pursued public-private partnerships for their hangar construction? What Enid went for that.
It's a misnomer. So they have a PPP grant through Department of Commerce. At the end of the day, the city will 100% own that hangar. There is no private entity that is intertwined in that at all. I don't know why they call it a 3P or a P3. I think of something entirely different when I hear that, but there is no private partner at the table. That money is going towards their 8 box hangars that are under construction right now. But there is not a private entity. It came through the Department of Commerce, but there's no private entity associated with that project. As far as some creative things we've seen at some other airports that you can possibly do if somebody's interested in doing that, is if someone wants to help contribute the local share towards the project, then you can come up with essentially a prepaid lease agreement where if they will bring the city share to the table, you can negotiate on this is going to be our initial, rental for the hangar, and we're going to have you build in CPI increases just like you have for your ground leases now. And they bring whatever, $200,000 to the table. And we say, okay, well, you're prepaid through here, but we're going to continue to escalate that rental rate in accordance with the CPI. So there may not be a firm date to which they are no longer prepaid. That's one option if the city doesn't have the local funds to do it. And as long as that's all well documented, and as long as that rental rate is in line with all the other rental rates on the airport, that is okay to do that. But you said that 12,000 foot was a magic number. Are people doing 100 by 20, 120s? Is that kind of the size? That's what we're about to do at Weatherford. We've done a wide range. A lot of times we have a known tenant that we're trying to put in there. So at Thomas, we did a 102 by 70, which is a weird number, but they wanted a 90-foot wide door. In order to have all the structure and everything to the door, that's how we arrived at the 2. At Clinton, we did a 92 by 70. And so it just kind of depends on what they're trying to do. Enid was a little bit of an exception. We did a 120 by 120 there because we had done one 10 years ago and they wanted another problem match. And so that required foam? Not foam. Because that is for storage only. We're not storage only. We're not doing maintenance in there. Runway extension. So I have several slides to go along with this, except Walt again stole my thunder. And this graphic this is not specific to your airport. This is just a graphic that was pulled over. What I briefly did is looked at a 1,000 foot runway extension. And now, Stan, I know early 2000. I mean, the concept and the process will be the same if we do 500, 1,000, or 2,000. But just some of the specifics that I looked at were just for 1,000 foot extension. So there's a long process that we have to do. The first thing we have to do is demonstrate to FAA that we had 250 annual landings of an aircraft or a group of aircraft, doesn't have to be one specific, that require at least the desired runway length. FAA has a methodology and an advisory circular that tells us how we have to go about doing that. We don't just get to say, well, the chief pilot says they need 6,000 feet. There's a process we have to use. If the aircraft are below 60,000 pounds, then we use one process. If they're over 60,000 pounds, we actually have to go into the airplane flight manual of that aircraft. We also have to demonstrate, so FAA's got 2 different tables that they have us use. One is for 60% useful load, one is for 90% useful load. Stage length matters. If somebody wants to fly their Gulfstream in from Dallas, we can't use a fully loaded Gulfstream 450 as our justification, even if they're going to come 250 times, because they're just coming from Dallas. So we have to be able to document that there's a required operational need or mission in order to use that table, use that 90% useful load table. We talked about this a little bit earlier. The current runway, taxiway, and apron pavement is 6-inch thick concrete. We have a 30,000 pound single wheel and 48,000 dual wheel weight capacity.
just for quick comparison, I just grabbed, I know there may be a multitude of target aircraft, but I know we talked about Gulfstreams before, so just using a G450, that would certainly help us justify a longer runway, but it weighs 75,000 pounds. So keep in mind, if we talk extension, that has to be synonymous with strengthening our runway, taxiway, and apron pavement in addition to the strength. The other caveat, and you mentioned this, Walt, is that G450 is considered a category C approach speed aircraft. Their approach speed is greater than 121 knots. Category C requires a 100-foot wide runway as opposed to 75. So it is going to be pretty much impossible to select a critical design aircraft that warrants the longer runway that doesn't also have the higher approach speed that requires the wider runway. So that means runway extension also means widening, strengthening, and extension. Not the least bit saying any of that's impossible, but we just need to be thinking of that in those terms.
My words to the point, if I say that means tearing out all the way out, reporting all of them.
Not necessarily. We could potentially do a bonded concrete overlay that would add strength. So not, and we need to do some geotechnical analysis and that. I don't want to shoot a pavement design from the hip, but I think there would be some options besides the pulling.
When they replaced the runway up at Palm City a couple years ago, they tore the whole thing out and redid it.
I believe that is correct. So it wasn't my project, but I believe that is correct. Okay, so step two. So that's the easy part. Strengthen all the paper. Step two is the runway protection zone, and that back on Caden's example there. This large trapezoid shape, get out of the way around side. The large trapezoid shape is the runway protection zone. That is a surface that it begins 200 feet off the end of the runway, and then it widens out as it continues beyond the runway end. If we are justifying a runway extension with category C aircraft, the dimensions of the RPZ get bigger. And so it actually continues to 1,900 feet beyond the end of the runway. The surface itself is 1,700 feet long, but it starts 200 feet beyond the end of the runway. We can't have any sort of structure or place of congregation within the runway protection zone. So just quickly looking at a 1,000-foot extension, there's at least 5 structures that would currently fall within that RPZ. Somewhere between 2 and 3 of those, just looking at Google Earth, are residences. So there would be no option but to buy that property and buy those structures so that they could be taken out of the runway protection zone.
Gotta relocate the road again.
The road, well, we haven't relocated that one yet, but the
Industrial.
Prairie Grove. So we're looking at going south. If we were to.
Could you do an underpass?
So for the road, potentially, yes. There's a surface called the runway safety area and the runway object free area. Both of those extend 1,000 feet beyond the runway end. The road, we can't have anything in those. So there'll have to be a whole bunch of grading that gets done to some minimum or maximum slopes rather that FAA will allow within that runway safety area. Currently, the road would penetrate the runway safety area. So we would either need to look at doing the tunnel or relocating the road out there. And so it would probably be a function of what's the cheaper route. Yeah. And there's going to be some political capital costs in there too, as far as buying up homes. And the 2 to 3 homes is an undershot when you look at how much we would have to relocate the road. The road is going to take out additional houses if we had to relocate. Technically, there's a policy that says we can't have a public use road within the runway protection zone. It requires a waiver. It's not as hard to get as what it used to be. We had to go to Washington to get it extended. Enid's runway in 2014. My understanding from a couple other folks is it's not quite that bad to do that now. Again, just talking about a 1,000-foot RSA, or excuse me, 1,000-foot RPZ, that would cover 13 different property owners. And so we have to control, we have to have land use control within the RPZ. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to own it fee simple. That's what FAA would prefer. But we can also do that through a navigation easement where basically the entity says, okay, we are for this amount of money, we are never going to build any structures within this. We're going to allow you to trim trees if you need to trim trees in it. what we were finding is the cost of those navigation easements is knocking on the door of the same cost as fee simple because it is so restrictive of what somebody can use the property for. So there, we would need to have some sort of property acquisition, be it outright or through navigation easements on at least 13 different parcels for 1,000-foot extension. And I didn't look at it at a 2,000 standard. So that would be step 2. Step 3, anytime we do stop line. Anytime we do any sort of project that increases the capacity at an airport or brings in a new category of aircraft. And what defines that is, remember, we keep talking about the category C approach speed. In order to justify the extension, we're going to have a Cat C aircraft. That's a new category. We would have to do an environmental assessment. I mean, that is a hurdle that can be jumped. We have to do those, for a lot of larger projects. But one of the components of that would definitely be a noise study. And so we talked about the 2 to 3 residences that are in the RPZ. There are some that are immediately outside the footprint of the RPZ. Those would be targets of interest in that noise study. And there's a chance that we could potentially have to do some sort of mitigation for those homes if the noise threshold is exceeded. Now, with the topography change and the runways up here higher than those, that may not be a concern, but we're not going to know that until we do the environmental assessment and the study within that. The last piece is going to be the funding. We talked about all the things that we're going to have to do in order to, widen, strengthen, et cetera. There's no way that we are ever going to be able to stack up that amount of money through our normal entitlements or through the normal discretionary process. That said, the ODAA is of the opinion that with Tom Cole as the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, we are probably looking at a period of time in the next few years where Oklahoma sees more earmarks for projects than we've ever seen before. We brought up Westheimer's 36.5 million. That's a perfect example. We just got one for the terminal bill. So Director Arties has encouraged us that the next time there is a request for those projects to go ahead and put in the widening and the strengthening as a project. He's not yet on board with our extension idea. We don't get there someday, but he said we ought to look at doing the widening and strengthening as a congressional earmark project. But obviously, we had some inside information on that $5 million limit. No other representative, and we did congressional director spending request for the city of Duncan. None of the others were giving us that $5 million limit. That was a little bit unique to Representative Weiss. He encouraged us the next time when that portal opens, to, even though we know we will exceed that $5 million for the widening and strengthening, to go ahead and submit that project as a request. So that I don't want to paint the picture that this is completely impossible. 5 years ago, it probably was, but this whole era of earmarks is a whole different problem.
If category C, does that change the distance between center lines, taxiway, runway on what we're getting ready to build?
I don't think so, Walt, because we're not planning on an approach lower than 1 mile. I would want to check that, but I don't believe that would move. I think we have to get below 3/4 mile minimums before that parallel taxiway moves out.
Do we have any nav aids available to get us below 3/4?
No. The only way to do that is with a mouse. For the known pilots in the room, so we have approach lights now on the north.
Right.
They don't work. When they work.
Well, they're old.
They provide a visual aid to pilots, pilots flying in the clouds down to a level, and you can see those lights 1,500 feet or 1,800 feet before you can see them. If you're on an instrument approach, once you visually see those lights, it allows the pilot to descend another 100 feet The idea being that 100 feet may make the difference in being able to see the runway, not see the runway, and make it continue to land. But that particular type of approach lights does not actually buy any credit as far as the flight procedures on the minimum visibility that they require and publish for that instrument approach. So right now, the visibility has to be 1 mile or better to legally shoot the instrument approach. And the approach lights don't do anything to reduce that. And this is speculative because I don't know what our controlling obstacle is. But what approach lights can do, if you have no other controlling obstacles, they can drop your minimums from 3/4 of a mile down to a half. It's impossible to get below 3/4 of a mile without a Mauser, which is a different type of approach light. It's actually 2,400 feet. Ours is 1,800 feet long. These are 24. So now I'm lying. They're 1,500. There's 6 stations. There's 6 stations, so these are 50. So if we wanted to put a Mauser in on runway 3/4 when we did the extension, that's potentially possible, but you would then have to buy property for another 2,400 feet off the end of the runway, and because of topography, they're going to be at the tower slightly first. So that alone is easily.
So my original question about the parallel taxiway that we're getting ready to build. If we submit a grant that asks for wider, stronger, does that tamper with the distance required between center lines?
Well, I need to check the big matrix, but I don't believe so if we're not ultimately planning to go.
Because we don't want to build a taxiway if we have to move it.
Because that funding is there, I think we're building that taxiway and we're building it for.
Get what I'm
Oh,
talking
totally. I think basically what, worst case, we are agreeing by building the taxiway there and also not relocating the existing taxiway, we're never going to get to half mile.
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're agreeing to. The best we're ever going to do is 3.
What's the ballpark on the strength being wide?
Easily 25 million. Easily.
And you haven't even talked about length.
No, that's just widening the strength.
Yeah, that canyon is gonna be,
So, no, I'm sorry. No. Let me back that up. Probably the extension and all that would be 25.
Okay.
I apologize. The widening and strengthening probably in the 10 to 12 range. We did a quick and dirty estimate for Duncan, and theirs did not include the widening, it was just strengthening. I think we get that.
So still probably exceeding the.
The only way to do it is gonna be through progression. That's it. So I say all that to say, if that's something the board wants to do, if that's something we want to identify in the master plan, it's what we want to look like when we grow up. I'm not the least bit saying that we can't do it, Stan. These are just the steps that we would have to go through in order to do that.
that mountain climb keeps getting steeper though.
All thanks to money.
I think the cities need to decide if this is something that they want to do, you know, for their benefit down the road.
And the other thing too, if we get the congressionally directed spending for the widening and the strengthening, and then come back in 10 years, and now we've got that justification, that it doesn't necessarily, if we want to talk extension, all those other components must happen simultaneous. But we could do some of the other components without the extension and not do it simultaneously. And then it would be a shorter row to hoe to come back and just do the extension. Now, there's still lots of zeros on that. But that would maybe position us for a future extension a little bit better. So that's all I had on the runways. Any questions on any of the runway slides? And then the last thing you just wanted to know, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that we need to talk about? You know, to me, the detention pond kind of keep dancing around that project, but we have space available to develop today, right? But we can't because of the detention. So just for me as your engineer, that seems like it ought to be somewhere on our priority list. Because that once that's done, that's gonna create some low hanging fruit as far as developable area.
What was that cost approximately?
Stan, the estimate that Myers did when they did the drainage study 5 years ago now, I think was $350,000. I'll hold that down. I was gonna say at least $500,000. I don't know, and I don't know to what degree of accuracy that's not a slight against them. I mean, it was a drainage study and it was a planning estimate. But I do think that would require a little bit of property acquisition based on where they had it shown. As that drainage basin leaves the airport, it goes kind of right along the property line with the drive-in. And so what they had shown was acquiring a little bit of property from the drive-in, so we could kind of widen it out on both sides of what is the current fence line. Now, would it be possible to shift that and get it all over on the airport? But possibly, that's not something we would look at.
That's gonna be difficult land to acquire.
It's a,
What,
The driving.
does it get that much use?
Yeah. It's not, it's just.
You agree though, right? That's gonna be difficult.
That. And it actually does, it is one of only 3 first run drive-ins.
and now I want to be. I don't think, I want to be clear that the intent was not acquire the drive-in and shut it down. It was acquire some property from them. So,
Same
Then-
incentives.
okay, well, I don't know if they would be happy to get a check. I didn't know.
Probably.
Okay,
Probably.
so that's probably something that, honestly, on something like that, we would sort directly with Myers. I mean, Myers has all the information. Myers did the initial, study, and, we don't need to read it, but we think that's something we want to pursue. We get together with Bill Myers and say, hey, could we carve this out differently? And put potential funding on the airport.
It seemed like last time we had a conversation, I think you put out for it.
I think 350 is what was in the study, and so I'm sure he was escalating that before, and
But I don't think we can do it before today. That was still used.
and now that would be FAA eligible. Your drainage improvements are FAA eligible, so that would be something that, in year 2 or 3, we could use those AIG funds towards.
The last time we talked about that, I think the conversation was our quickest way to grow the airport, our quickest way to put new development out would be that route. That's still correct, you think?
If we're able to remove the land acquisition component from that equation, I think so, yes. If we have to acquire that, the ball's already rolling on trying to acquire Martin and Cogburn, and so.
What's the smallest number out there so far for any forward program? So it sounds pretty good to me.
The other thing we probably need to have on the list is taxiway lights. The existing taxiway lights on the portion of the taxiway that won't be reconstructed. I think that's something, I don't believe we're gonna have the budget inside of the current taxiway project to go do all that. I think we're gonna be strapped cash by the green policy. It's all direct buried and incandescent, and yes.
They're not that old.
Taxiway lights?
You're talking about on that end?
Oh, 06.
Well,
yeah, 18 years for direct burial.
I sort of know guys.
I know. So that may be something that you want to include on the. And that's all, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
All of that.
We are gonna do one last thing. What's next step is we're gonna do the multimeter again with just the ranking of the projects. Thank you all for your patience and time today. I know it's ran a little bit longer than I had probably anticipated. And then after that, we'll adjourn for a break again, and then we'll come back and do our regular airport board meeting, just as we normally would from there. So let me go ahead.
And we did post this so that we could do that.
Yes,
We didn't have to start right. Yes, I believe that's correct.
yes, yes, sir. Okay, so should still be on the same page. You can scan that QR code again. Let me know if you have any issues with it. Actually,
So on sliders, I'm not sure I understand the question. So you're like saying, are you strongly in agreement 1 to 5, or you neutral?
yes, I actually meant to make it, that's not my bad. I meant to make it in a format in which you just select one. I didn't mean for it to slide.
So you just want the top one?
Yes, go ahead.
Just use.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my bad. I apologize. Okay. Okay. Is that it? I believe, is everyone voted?
Yep.
Okay, I think so.
I'm using your phone, so it looks like you voted.
It's all right. You're not done, Walt.
Goodness.
That's it. Yes. All right, has everybody voted?
Tell me about taxi lanes on new airport property.
That was what we put in for the congressional directed spending.
And that's the one that if we don't get the congressional directed spending, the ODAA has stated portion that $900,000 of their money lined up.
Is this same airport parallel taxiway?
These are taxi lanes that would come off of the new parallel for future hangar development on the southwest side. In short, if you don't support this, we need to tell the ODAA we don't want their money.
Well, the rankings will probably be all off on how we did it. That's all right.
Not as long as there are issues.
That's true. That's true. Well, this is the cheap one, right, Toby? This is the cheap.
No, this has got all three of them. Strengthen and widen.
So it's a triple barrel collection.
Yeah, so it's 25 million. Now, let's not run that 25 million in front of anybody else, okay? First rule of engineering is never do public math.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but
So in the future, you would like to see this broken out. And this
Well,
strengthening.
I'm all in favor of strengthening and widening. But lengthening, it just seems like a bridge too far. Are you tracking with me?
It seemed like that lengthening was double the cost, right?
Yeah, but lengthening, because of the
I would say easily double.
It's
Yeah, I think double the cost, but nothing you would do in the strengthening and the widening would be a waste towards the future.
development. That's what
You could call it phase one of that, because it's all gonna be required.
That makes lengthening a smaller project more spendable.
A smaller, huge project.
A smaller gigantic project.
Right.
All right. We're almost done, I promise. We're almost there. I'm not lying to you.
And I guess the other thing I want to make clear is, make no mistake, guys, I want to do the extension. I get to design it. That's a hell of a project to put on a resume. So I don't mean to sound negative or discouraging about that at all.
I'm thinking we build a pier
Where is that? It's South America. They've got the runway up on piers.
Yeah.
I can't remember where that's.
And it works. But they don't have to deal with the FAA stuff.
And Oklahoma does have a runway with a tunnel under it. Shawnee's Airport.
Yeah.
That is MacArthur Boulevard.
What they say it was it's the widest, shortest bridge in Oklahoma. Cause it was ODOT funds that built it.
Really? I did not know that.
Which bridge? McCarthy Bridge? What do you call it?
MacArthur Avenue,
Oh, MacArthur.
the Shawnee
Okay.
Goes under the runway.
goes
Oh,
under.
oh, wow.
So they called it a bridge, but the bridge is only
Right.
this wide, but dang, it's only this long.
But it's super wide, I guess. Cause it's the entire runway out
Entire
the free
runway,
area.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
free
just the
area, not the
runway, but
runway.
yes.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Okay, I'll pass our votes for hangers. All right, so this one, you'll drag each project up to the top and rank them on where you would put them. With this, I guess I'd ask, consider if the terminal were done last week and it magically worked out where you could put any project next, which one would you select?
This one project is all over.
Well, you can rank it. So you can move them up and rank them however you.
Oh, we got to rank.
Rank the six the way you want them.
So if you hate the fence, you can make sure the fence is the last one. Or any. Does that make sense?
No, it's not like you.
It isn't? Or is it making you put one out?
No, I'm still drag them all into like a
No,
list.
it wouldn't be.
You drag the first one into the list, then you drag the next one, then you drag the third. But really, you just touch on it, it'll stack them for you on that.
Okay, so.
Oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Then
On a loaner fund, no less. I haven't known them very long, but I give everybody their crap. So.